Tip today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tip Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. It won't cost you if you'd like to make a call to us. And Leanne is producing. Coming up on the show this morning, Father Brendan Kilcoyne will speak to me in just a few moments' time. Calls are growing to criminalise sex for rent exploitation. Time is running out to apply for the Tipperary Chamber Business Awards 2026. Tipperary's own Frank McNamara, longtime musical director of The Late Late Show, chats to us about the Piano Men ahead of tomorrow night's show in the Manila in Clonmel. Hidden History with Dr. Conor Reidy, Wellbeing with Muriel and Charlotte, and a taste of this week's Down Your Way as well. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tipfm.com. Quick glance at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. The Irish Times is dominated by a rather happy photograph indeed. About 500 Muslim men, women and children attended Croke Park for the Eid prayers and celebrations, and guests included former Taoiseach Bertie Ahern and Monsignor Owen Thine, representing the Catholic Archbishop of Dublin, Dermot Farrell. But lovely sunny picture there from Croke Park yesterday. Also on the Times today, we're reading that jurors in the trial of the former DUP leader Jeffrey Donaldson will hear about difficult and traumatic incidents the two alleged victims in the case claim occurred when they were children. Newry Crown Court heard yesterday. Also reading on the Times today, Jack Power's piece that the government hopes to make swift progress pushing forward negotiations on Ukraine's stalled bid to join the European Union when Ireland holds the bloc's rotating presidency in the second half of this year. The Irish Independent and their main story there, AI-generated online adverts promoting bogus state-backed investment schemes are being used by sophisticated scammers to target over 50s who own the bulk of Ireland's savings glut. The Irish Daily Mail, Gardaí will be on patrol at 42 primary schools across County Carlow today after almost half of them received threats of a mass shooting, can you believe? Also on the Examiner today, we're hearing that a crisis in autopsy services has spread nationwide, with staffing issues leaving families waiting years for closure on their loved ones' deaths. Now, it's something we discussed on the programme several times over the last few months, but seemingly University College Dublin Professor of Forensic Medicine and Legal Medicine, Dennis Cusack, said the problem first highlighted in Waterford is now evident in Cork, Kerry, Limerick, Clare and Kildare. Also reading today, and this is going to make you very happy indeed, households face paying up to €644 more in their energy bills over the next decade due to the growth of data centres, a report has warned. So when you're paying more for your electricity, just say to yourself, at least we're supporting the data centres. If you want to make comment on any of that, 083 311 3311. Now, yesterday on the programme, John O'Donovan joined us to express his anger over Pope Leo's decision to meet Taoiseach Micheál Martin. John argued that it was deeply hypocritical for the Pope to meet with a political leader who has supported abortion. I'd like to be joined on the line now by Father Brendan Kilcoyne. Good morning to you, Father Brendan. I see we don't seem to have Father Brendan online with us, so we'll attempt to get him back. Possibly on a phone line, maybe, Leanne. We don't seem to have him there on Zoom, so we'll try that again and we'll see what we can get where that is concerned, because we've got a huge reaction indeed to John speaking to us yesterday, and a lot of people agreeing with him, a lot of people disagreeing with him, and making the point that the Pope's job was to meet people that he doesn't necessarily agree with at all times. But there you go. Let me see. Is that on the phone or on Zoom? Are we going with the phone, Leanne? Okay, let's go with the phone. Father Brendan Kilcoyne. Good morning to you, Father Brendan. Good morning to you, Father.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to talk to you. I beg your pardon. There's some gremlins for us today. I was saying, just by way of introduction, I was saying that John O'Donovan joined us yesterday, expressing his anger over the Pope meeting the Taoiseach because he was arguing that Micheál Martin was a supporter of the abortion legislation. And I'm just wondering, John's a very devout and conservative Catholic. Do you think there's many who would agree with him?
I think there's certainly some. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's a tricky area. You see, part of the Pope's problem there is that he's acting as a head of state, which he actually is. And he's receiving, all right, not a head of state, but he's receiving the head of a government, sovereign government. And so there are all sorts of protocols around that. So I suppose there's a time and a place for everything. I imagine certain things were discussed among them. Micheál Martin, I think, dwelled on education, the redress scheme, stuff like that. But the Pope isn't in as quite a free position as John might be willing to allow. He's juggling several balls in the air at the same time. It's always been a problem for popes. But he has made his position on abortion abundantly clear in other ways, as did the last man, Yeah,
and of course, popes throughout history have, met controversial political leaders, whether it's Castro or indeed, I think. Well, did Pope Francis meet Putin? One of the popes met Putin, I think, as well.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did. And I mean, John Paul met Gorbachev when he was still the head of the Soviet Union and all the rest.
Yeah. So their position, I mean, it's not necessarily an endorsement of the people they meet then, but it's from a diplomatic point of view, I guess. Is that what it's about?
Not at all. There's no endorsement. The only thing they're saying is they're meeting the head of a sovereign government. And they're behaving in a diplomatically appropriate manner. The Vatican has to function on a number of different levels, and the diplomatic is one of them. And it's a level of considerable constraint. But what it makes possible is continuing communication among leaders in various areas, and that's absolutely crucial because even in war, two opposing sides will try to make sure there's some sort of a channel there where, if necessary, they can communicate with the other side. And it will usually be through friendly diplomats and diplomacy. So what the approach of the Vatican does have value, even if some very, very committed believers find it infuriating at times.
Yeah, it's interesting. And, where Irish politicians are concerned, and I know Micheál Martin is among them in terms of being, I think he's a churchgoer, he certainly is a Catholic anyway. What about divorcing, if you forgive the pun, divorcing their Catholicism from their role as a politician? Is that allowable as far as you're concerned? Is it?
No, it's not allowable. This has come up again and again. It's a real problem. Is that if a Catholic politician is in a position to do good as the Church defines it, then he or she should do the good and abstain from the evil. It's a real issue. It's not just in Ireland. It came up very much for instance, in the United States, and comes up again and again. A lot of Catholics historically were Democrats, for instance, in the United States.
Yes.
The Democratic Party is passionately pro-abortion. So, well, they would say pro-choice, okay? So it's a real issue. It never goes away. Pope St. John Paul spoke on it repeatedly, particularly with regard to the abortion thing. But of course also because he was much criticised for interfering in the politics of communist Poland, which is his native country.
Sure, yeah.
So it's nearly impossible to find an area where politics don't exist, right? And the religion is constantly having to engage with politics and the other way around. But it's a real issue for a Catholic to be in an office where he or she actually is instrumental in bringing in abortion or in extending it.
When John was talking to me yesterday, he cited the incident where was it Father Colin Burke denied Holy Communion to I beg your pardon, it was the TD Colin Burke was denied by Father Gabriel Burke.
Yeah.
What did you make of that decision by the priest in that case?
I admired his courage enormously. His judgment, that would be maybe a longer discussion. And I'm not saying he necessarily had bad judgment in it, but that is a debatable point. But he showed great courage. You see, a huge problem for priests like that is that they're inevitably left to swing when contrasted with considerable passivity in the church at the time. Like, you know, a good few priests said little or nothing on the ground. You had that. Now, you also had a huge issue of fear among priests in that they knew what would happen if we had won, you know, is that all hell would have come down on their heads for years afterwards. So humanly, probably there was fear or a kind of paralysis as well. But there's no doubt that to an extent we sold the path. I'm not sure we could have stopped it, but I do think that we could have narrowed the majority by which it was passed, yeah. We were astonished, genuinely astonished by the extent of the majority.
And was it there? And you cited the wording yourself, you know, the notion of pro-choice as opposed to pro-abortion, if you know what I mean. Was that a softening of? Of
course.
Yeah.
It's a much easier sell. And it's an interesting discussion. You know, can you be simply pro a level of autonomy in this area? But we don't grant that with regard to murder, for example, or what we define as murder. Everything comes back to how the status you accord to the unborn child. Everything comes back to that. And the church, to its credit, has continually come back to that. But on the ground, that doesn't always work out well. So I would be very slow to blame the Pope for doing the appalling job he has to do. It's by definition, it's an impossible job, operating on all those different levels, the pastoral, the political, the diplomatic. I'd be much more inclined, and not even to blame the bishops in Ireland, but to blame priests on the ground who did not give the leadership at the time. It's a good time to remember that when Micheál Martin is simply accorded diplomatic respect and protocol. It's that pass was sold on the ground. It was that's my firm belief.
And in the case of Father Gabriel Burke, who, as you said, did stand up, but he went so far, though, as to tell the TD that he was excommunicated. Now, I'm not sure if he had the power to do that, Father Brendan.
Well, he doesn't have a priest doesn't have the power of excommunication, but what a priest can do is try to declare an existing excommunication. So what he was really doing was giving an opinion as to the status in the church. And that has never been clarified. We're very clear that automatic excommunication results, let's say, for the doctor, for the nurse who cooperates in it, and for the parent involved, all things being equal, that they're not under force or fear, that they're not under error, whatever it is. Okay, they know what they're doing and they do it deliberately. Yeah, it wasn't made clear as to what the status was, for instance, of TDs who had voted to get rid of the bulwark against abortion, which was the amendment. That wasn't made clear at all. One bishop, I think, Kevin Dorn, got into a storm of controversy, if you remember, for saying anyone who voted for it should go to confession. Yeah. But the more interesting question, again, was whether going to confessions would be any good, because it wasn't clear as to whether anyone who voted for it was, in fact, already excommunicated. Because the excommunication with regard to abortion is what's called lati sententia, which means that it happens by virtue of the act being freely and knowledgeably carried out. It doesn't require any declaration by authority.
And still, I mean, whenever this is discussed with maybe more liberal or who might be seen as more liberal members of the church, they'd be talking about empathy and sympathy and looking at people's cases and all of that kind of thing. What about that? Because I'm just wondering, for people who, like John, who are conservative, they would see that as in some way clouding the issue and clouding the rules of the church around this.
I think it's a necessary part of the discussion, but I take John's point, if that's the point he would make. I do take that point. But, I mean, we deal with empathy all the time. Counsellors show empathy. Doctors show empathy. Consultants, perhaps, notoriously, some of them are not good at empathy. Yeah. But they're so highly specialised, maybe, that's inevitable. You can have empathy and yet retain objectivity, and you can be very firm. So I don't think we need to throw out empathy. Crikey, no. But because some of the mothers in the case of abortions are in the most ghastly situations. But at the same time, we have to keep our heads. If everyone loses their head, you just have chaos. So you would expect that the priest, Catholic layperson in situations like that would keep their head as well as showing empathy.
And people like John, I would imagine, and again, he's well able to speak for himself, but I would imagine people like John who are conservative Catholics would like to see something a little more definite in terms of the message that's being put out there. And I'm thinking that there's a lot of young people searching out there as well, and I think they're looking for absolute, if you know what I mean, in terms of
I know.
Whether it's what they're searching for spiritually or whatever.
Yeah.
The absolute isn't there, is it not?
No, I think again in our preaching, priests have become afraid of it. We're afraid of the harshness maybe of the past, and we're also maybe afraid of our people to an extent. We're afraid of losing in the collections. We're afraid of a whole load of stuff like that. So you need a balance. You can't be preaching without kindness. You can't be preaching without compassion. But at the same time, you have to preach the truth. And young people, I absolutely agree. Young people are, I wouldn't say totally disappointed in us, but they're very cautious with regard to us because they feel that given half a chance, we'll either sell out or maybe not even have the guts to do that. We just refuse to make a decision and keep quiet. And there is a level of disillusionment among committed and searching Catholics. There's no doubt about that.
I went down a rabbit hole last night with the Pope's first encyclical. I'm pretty sure you're across it, Magnificent Humanity, or what is it, Magnifica Humanitas. It's very interesting. It's all about his thoughts on AI, and it's more philosophical, I suppose, than anything else. I think it's a little late, though, Father Brendan, because what he's advising and what he's talking about has already come to pass.
I think some philosopher, I'm not well read in philosophy, it may have been the Frenchman Camus, I can't remember, but some philosopher said the church always arrives at the party late and out of breath. and I think that's the reason. Part of the reason is that the church just does genuinely try to get its head around what's happening, and of course you lose time. I don't know how good we are at the kind of prophetic, let's say, testing of the future that goes on in business and that kind of thing. I don't know if the church is as sharp there as it should be. We don't have the think tanks around the world that we should have. But at the same time, I think nearly everyone is arriving late and out of breath to the AI party. I mean, legislation is a way behind it. In fact, you'd be cautious about legislating because the trouble is the law could be out of date.
Of course, it moves so quickly. But some of what he was saying, he concerned that tech companies and governments could gain enormous control through AI. I mean, they're already controlling through AI. He said it could eliminate a large number of jobs. That's already happening as well. He said stronger sections concern autonomous weapons and military AI, which is happening as we speak as well. So I just wonder, is it just sort of ticking a box in some way?
I don't think so, and certainly I don't think with this Pope. I don't think he's a box ticker. He's a very reflective, sincere guy.
Yeah.
But there is that element of the church being constantly late to the party. There is no doubt about that. This conversation with AI will go on because I think it's going to move very, very quickly. And I think there are huge power issues. There's no question about that. I think there's a question anyway about the power of these companies. I think it's been there even before it became clear to everyone that AI was moving so quickly. It's quickly enough to start even the tech companies, I think.
I think so. But again, I was looking for the absolute. I mean, I was looking for him to come out and say, well, look here's the church's point of view on this. and here's what we think should happen. But it was, as I say, it was more reflective. It was philosophical in its own way. It was technical even in some other ways, you know.
Yeah. The great question, he's a bright guy, and the great question that often comes up in the episcopate and in the papacy, and the papacy really is the episcopate because the Pope is Pope in virtue of being Bishop of Rome, like, you know. And the great question that keeps coming up is how much philosophizing can we afford to do, and when is the right time to say yes and no, as you very rightly bring up there. I think another problem is that the Vatican tends to be very diplomatic, very circumspect, very mild in its statements, and you have this discussion in the Church as to whether diplomacy is actually a Christian virtue. I don't know. Certainly, some of the saints in the past were notoriously undiplomatic.
Indeed. Well, I suppose you could view his interaction with Mr. Trump as being undiplomatic to some degree.
It was.
You know,
it was.
Are we looking for more of that? Do you think, from a social justice point of view? And
well, they both seem to have backed off there.
Just a little.
It was a very interesting clash.
Yeah.
It was real Pope and Emperor stuff. I think there will be more. You see, a lot of he's a Chicagoan, yes, but a lot of his formation as a priest, if you like, as a working priest, was in South America. Mm. Pretty much like the last Pope, where you have historically a lot of injustice and you have a lot of poverty, and so he will be doing that prophetic thing, very much. The question comes up as to whether, let's say, other things don't require prophecy as well. AI is going to require a great deal of prophecy. Mm-hmm. I don't think diplomacy is going to cut it forever, you know. Interesting.
Always look forward to our conversations. Thank you for your time this morning, Father Brendan. Thank you. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Good morning to you. Bye-bye now. It's Father Brendan Kilcoyne speaking to us there. 1800 938 007. One of our listeners says the priests go to visit prisons and they pray with murderers, another outrageous criminal. So what's the difference with that and not allowing abortions, is one of our listeners. And I say this generated by a conversation with John O'Donovan on the programme yesterday. Let's take a break. Back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Well, it's high time that sex for rent exploitation is criminalised, according to the Civil Society Coalition on addressing sex for rent exploitation and protecting renters, which includes organisations representing women, students, migrants and renters. Now, the coalition is also calling for practical measures to end the practice, and their senior policy coordinator, Ivana Uchak, joins me now. Good morning to you, Ivana.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming on with us today. People might be surprised to realise that there's not proper legislation there already.
Yes, and we get that question a lot. It basically falls through the cracks because what we're calling for, particularly with this legislation, is to criminalise the offer of sex for rent arrangements, because it is not a naive offering. Because if you're already living with your landlord, renting a room, or you are desperate for a house, when someone makes these proposals are very, very scary if you have to live with a person who is making this type of proposal.
How do you legally define sex for rent, though, Ivana? Will that be a difficulty?
It would be. There's a lot of nuances. We saw that on the ads, for example, that when this issue came, that there was more awareness on this, we saw that the ads, for example, can be very ambiguous, for example.
Yes.
But nevertheless, obviously the platforms will have, or we are calling to have, a liability on publishing this type of ads, but also the person who is making this type of offer. So it's not just on the online space. It could also happen in one-to-one when the person goes see the property, for example. So it is nuanced and it will be tricky to enforce. And this is why we're also calling for additional support, as you already mentioned, protections for renters, particularly for those who rent a room, not an entire property. That's where we see that most of these arrangements are offered.
And of course, now with the housing crisis that we have, unhoused women, particularly, really vulnerable to this, I suppose.
Absolutely, and that's what we see, that most of these arrangements are proposed that women and sometimes the children who are desperate for a house, like, for example, fleeing context of domestic violence, or international students that need to find accommodation in order to come to Ireland to study, migrant women. So all of them who are desperate, they don't have really an option, because even if they don't want this arrangement, where are they going to go? So women are put in a position where they either have to choose between sexual violence or harassment or homelessness, and that's an impossible choice.
I presume, in some cases the Gardaí will be the first stop in terms of complaints, but is there training? Are Gardaí equipped, I suppose is what I want to say, to deal with this, Ivana?
Well, and this is why it's so important, the criminalisations, because that would give the Gardaí the powers not only to get this report, but also to collect data on this. So we have even more clarity, because we know from different interviews that this is happening all across the country. And last week, Dublin Rape Crisis Centre actually published data on this, that they do get on their helpline women in desperate situation calling that this is the situation they're living in, because it is the context of sexual violence. So the idea of criminalising, or the call to criminalise this, is to give Gardaí more powers.
What sort of examples are you hearing from women? Is it initially when they present themselves to look at the property or whatever? Is it at that particular time, or how does this work?
We saw a bit of a change, in fact, because when we initially conducted research in 2023, 2024, the ads were very obvious. So we started to collect data on these ads. But when Anne Murphy from the Irish Examiner started to raise awareness on this issue, these ads became more hidden. So it started to happen more in one-to-one situations. And recently a fictional documentary was released on how this happens, and it was screened in Leinster House, in fact, thanks to Senator Laura Harmon. So we see that these arrangements could be offered by your neighbour, a couple. It's not even just single men that we might envision in these situations. It could be really anyone, and that, I suppose, that's the scariest part, but also important to understand the nature of it.
In terms of the advertising then of properties and the like, I mean, are you calling for penalties for some of the platforms who might host these ads as well?
Absolutely, and we were clarified by the Justice Committee that anything illegal in the, let's call it the real world, but everything is the real world, is also illegal in the online space. So if this is criminalised, the offering of sex for rent is criminalised, it should not take place through ads in online platforms either. And there is a corporate liability for publishing these ads, and then the commissioner should be responsible to monitor these illegal content.
Right, but of course social media platforms are notoriously difficult to police, I suppose.
I absolutely agree. So there needs to be way more regulations across the board of the online platforms and the harms that they cause on people. And thankfully we saw recently, for example, that extreme pornography is meant to be criminalised, especially for the harms that it causes on young people and children. So absolutely, this is an issue across the board.
Only one issue I can think of that might be a difficulty for you, and that would be the notion of protecting people against false or malicious kind of accusations and using the future legislation for that. Would that trouble you?
Well, false accusations are a very small proportion of
Yeah.
accusations. I mean, doing an accusation is a difficult situation for anyone, for both the victim and the perpetrator, whoever that is. So, and that's obviously already contemplated in legislation. So I'm not particularly worried in the sense that there's very few false accusations if we look at the overall accusations that are made, and that's an issue across any criminal offence. But we see from data that is not a trend for sure. But the trend is that most women, but generally women, but it could be men as well, the sentencing is very low. The reporting is extremely low. So I'm more worried about those figures, to be honest.
The criminal law and civil law bill, that has reached the third stage at this point, has it?
That's right, yes.
Right, okay. So what are you looking to now, Ivana? What's next then?
Well, it needs to be first and foremost enacted, because as we are right now, it is not a specific named offence, so it will only become law and a criminal offence once it's enacted. So this bill contains a lot of very important issues, and we heard a lot more about counselling notes, the use of counselling notes in rape trials, for example.
Yes, of course.
So it contains a lot of provisions that are extremely important for victims and survivors. So I really hope that it goes through all the stages and it has the biggest amount of provisions to protect women and children, and it's as victim-centred as possible.
All right. Good to talk to you today, Ivana, and thank you for making time for us. Thank you.
Very much.
Good morning to you. That is Senior Policy Coordinator with the Civil Society Coalition, Ivana Uchak, speaking to us there. 1800 938 007. Back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007.
And you're very welcome back to Tipp Today. Listen around to say an important point. People can't keep vilifying men and male landlords. I know of landlords who refuse sex for rent from a female tenant. He's happily married. In the end, his wife had to deal with the tenant in question. It works both ways. Just to point the situation out, this is one of our listeners on 083 311 3311. Deirdre says it's not shocking to hear this about rent for sex, just for some people to put a roof over their heads. Knowing that people like this offering a room in this way is actually really disturbing. It's a sad state of affairs that our country has been run so badly that we put women in this awful situation simply because we can't help ourselves easily anymore, says Deirdre to us. As I say, that's 083 311 3311. Now, applications for the Chamber Business Awards 2026 are coming to a close on June 5th, and I'm glad to be joined in the studio now by the CEO of Tipperary Chamber. Michelle Aylward is with me. Good morning to you, Michelle.
Good morning, Fran.
And good to see you today. There's a little bit of time left, Michelle, but you're getting a great volume of entries so far, aren't you?
We are, yeah. We're very happy. I think the Business Awards have grown their own momentum over the last few years.
Yeah.
And the recognition of the awards, which is great to be able to see that businesses are now planning to apply for these awards every year. So as you said, yeah, we're open until the 5th of June, so there's still time for businesses to get their applications in. Right,
and for people who haven't gotten involved in the past, just to remind people of why they should enter this, I suppose, Michelle?
Yeah, and look, I think, well, first of all, it's probably the biggest networking event of Tipperary.
Yeah.
It showcases the best of the best. It certainly does. We have a huge county, so we split it. One year we do it in Neenah, and then the following year we'll do it in the south of the county. But it's a huge opportunity to showcase your business. The only requirement is that your business is registered in Tipperary. You don't have to be a Chamber member or affiliated with anything else. So there's nothing more rewarding, I think, than being recognised from your peers, especially within Tipperary, and being on that national stage. So again, it's a huge honour for businesses.
For sure, and it's widely recognised recognised because, I mean, your special guest last year was the Taoiseach.
That's correct, indeed. Yeah, we were very lucky, as I said. We're one of 36 chambers within Ireland, so the Taoiseach is always in huge demand. So it just goes to show that we are raising the level of profile and investment within Tipperary among our businesses to be able to showcase that directly to the Taoiseach and to be able to show him what we do have available in here and why they should be investing more in regions like Tipperary. So
yeah, I'd imagine you're keeping it under your hat who the special guest is this year.
We are. We always keep it very close, tight knit, but we will certainly have a couple of ministerials from government there and some VPs as well, always on the night.
Very good. Okay, so we're looking forward to that. And just to remind people about the categories as well, Michelle, if you would, because it's extensive, isn't it?
It is, and every year we send out a feedback form, I suppose, to people who have entered the awards and also to our businesses members to find out, if you did enter the awards or you didn't, and why didn't you? To make sure that we do cater. I mean, Tipperary is such a wide variety of different businesses, and we want to be able to make sure that we do cater for everybody.
Yes.
And that sometimes can be difficult, I suppose, because the awards only go on for a few hours. I mean, we can't have hundreds of different awards. Yeah. So we have about 15 awards that are in there this year. So again, covering off things like your best cafe and restaurant, which is so important, and those ones are normally very good to apply, but I do understand obviously the constraints on the business people trying to fill out those particular applications. Our family run businesses, which are hugely important, all the way up to the SMEs, the not-for-profit ones as well, which are very important to us as well. So as I said, there's about 15 of them in there. There's something in there for everybody. Even if you don't think you can get into one in there, there's even a customer service one, which is very important. Every business in Tipperary
it's one of the things I like about it every year is that it goes from your humble cafe right up to international companies. You know?
Hugely, right up to our large employer, and that's people that will employ people over 100 people within Tipperary, and there's always huge competitive in that, and they all get involved, and as you said, all the way right up from your large employers right down to your sole traders as well. So always great. And
as part of the joy of it is then the networking is so vast, isn't it? When you think about that,
it is. The amount of business I think that does be done on the night of the Business Awards is unbelievable, and we've heard stories over the years, because again, I always say, we run about 60-70 events, networking events throughout the year, to help people to do networking with other businesses. And sometimes on the night of the Business Awards, what I always like to say is the who's who will be in the room on the night, and those are the nights that you want to be talking to people or getting in front of them, or even just a handshake, and then allow you then a couple of months later then to be able to follow up with those people and say, met you at the Chamber Business Awards.
I see so many business cards passing from one person to another. What's great to see over the years as well is the amount of women involved in business has increased hugely, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'd love to take the credit for that, but unfortunately I can't. Look, it is, and that's something that we do, I suppose, champion as well. One of our events that we run in the Chamber is the Connecting Women in Business event, but it's to be able to give them that platform and that support, and definitely I think the government should be investing hugely as well in terms of female entrepreneurship as well.
Yeah, this is happening in the Manila Hotel this time round. I know. Are hotels scrambling for the business?
They are.
This is so prestigious, isn't it?
It is, and our problem now at the moment is we're running out of capacity in terms of the venue size.
Well, that's the thing. It sells out.
It sells out. No, it does. Once we put the tickets on sale, they will sell up very, very quickly. So we always try and make sure that everybody who has applied for the awards make sure that they do get their tickets on time, because, as I said, we're just unlucky here in Tipperary, and we don't want to move it outside of Tipperary because it's a Tipperary Business Awards, and we want to keep it here. So hopefully we'll have a big convention centre built in the future, and we'll be able to host it there.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed on that. So are tickets on sale at the moment?
No, they're not on sale at the moment. So we will continue to keep the applications coming through. Like every year, we have an independent judging panel, and we change up the judges every year, and we bring them from Chambers Ireland, right away from businesses within Tipperary that are experts in their areas. So after the 5th of June, we will then pass over the documents to them. They will have about 8 weeks or so to go through the applications, and then they will come back with their shortlistings with us. And then once we release the shortlists, then the tickets will then go on sale.
I think it's part of the success, though, that people understand that the adjudication panel, they know what they're at. You know?
They do. They're experts in their areas. We'll have about 8 judges that we have every year, and they will work tirelessly over the summer to go through all of those applications. Yeah.
All right. So in terms of getting involved then, and you only have, what is it, less than a week at this point, is it?
Less than a week,
Less than a week, okay. So just to give a quickie on how you get involved, Michelle.
So again, it's very, very simple, Fran. Log on to our website, countytipperary.chamber.com. We've invested in a new software in the back end of our website, so you can set up a username and a password so you can actually save your application and continue to work on it. There's about 3 or 4 questions. We've made it as simple as possible over the years because nobody likes filling out these questions. They don't have time either, and they're very busy. And then there is a word count on there. They can fill out the details. They can enter as many of the awards as they wish to do so, as long as they meet the criteria in terms of the staffing numbers and things like that. And they can upload any videos or any supporting documentation that they think might help their application on the night, and then submit it. If anyone's having any difficulty with the application online, in terms of their web browsers or anything like that, they can give us a call at the office and we'll be able to send them over a particular different copy and they can fill it out. So just log on to the website and they can apply for the awards.
And everybody welcome, needless to say. Just on the broader discussion around business, I mean, we're hearing about difficulties all the time. Costs have gone through the roof, particularly energy costs. I guess you're hearing that every day. Michelle, you're in the process of putting together a pre-budget submission at the moment.
That's correct indeed, yeah. So the pre-budget submission for 2027, we're working with Chambers Ireland at the moment, so obviously they will do their national submission, but as a chamber here we'll be doing our own. So over the last number of weeks we've been holding meetings with our members and different groups in terms of where their pain points are and what their specific asks are in terms of this particular budget, and we've kind of narrowed it down, I suppose, because we've learned over the last number of years, I suppose, if you go in with a long list of asks, you're not going to get anything. So our priorities, I suppose, for Tipperary is obviously the cost of doing business, its infrastructure, its housing, and its thriving towns. And those are the main areas. But like you just said there, the cost of doing business is something that's coming up hugely on all of our members, and that can be even down to the training, the PRSI, the cost of energy. We need to make Ireland more competitive so that our businesses and our SMEs can continue to sustain and stay in business.
And specifically, what are you looking at? I mean, I don't want you to give it all away, nor would you, but in terms of what you're looking for, are you talking about direct investment in business, or are you talking about funding? What is it, Michelle?
Yeah, so a lot of, again, that we're looking for is to continue and maximise the supports that are out there, like the SEAI grants for businesses, removing the red lines around them so that smaller businesses can get access to them. And that seems to be a very difficult area in terms of a lot of businesses aren't aware of the supports that are out there because it's made very difficult for them. So it's making sure that we remove those red lines. Looking at not increasing PRSI and putting extra costs onto the local businesses, because that's really going to hurt them. They can't sustain those particular costs anymore. And even unlocking funds that are out there at the moment. If you look at the National Training Development Fund, and as you know, we have a skill net, like there's 1.6 million that is in there, but unfortunately that's not being released. So we're putting a huge amount of pressure on the government to be able to say to them, look, you need to release this fund. It's already been paid in from employers, and it needs to be filtered down into the businesses so that they can upskill their staff, especially around digitalisation and AI. And this funding then will allow us then to be able to run the training at a huge substantial cost then for the businesses, so that they're not feeling it.
What are you hearing back on auto enrolment?
And look, again, a lot of the smaller businesses are finding that it is very, very expensive, because again, it's another layer, and everyone's aware of why we need to do it, but again, it always comes back to the business person having to be able to pay it, and that's where the problem is, and that then affects then in terms of the recruitment and taking on more staff. So it's putting another strain on the businesses, which is not fair either. We
discuss this kind of stuff on the programme all of the time, and we're all aware of the difficulties, and still I find it so heartening to see people having a go and another business opening up somewhere, and you see a sign going up over a door, and you say, these people are fantastic.
They're courageous. absolutely courageous. I mean, even like a lot of new businesses, when they've set up, the one thing that they want to do is to start networking. So they join the chamber, and the amount of new businesses that we see coming through to our membership is phenomenal. And it's nothing but courageous, because they're putting themselves out there. They're taking on those risks. And sometimes they're taking on then employees and stuff like that. So they need all the support that they can get, and they need it from government in terms of investing in our own businesses here within Tipperary. And that's what we're hoping to be able to do, as I said, making sure that we can remove those red lines for them so that they are aware of those supports. Because sometimes when they're running a business, that is their main priority, of course it is, and they're not aware of the other supports that are out there, or how do they tap into the different resources. And that's what we do in terms of a chamber, in terms of pointing them in that right direction on where you can get the supports, or how you can get those applications filled out, or who you need to be speaking to see, do you qualify for these particular supports.
Bids for Clonmel getting a big thumbs up in the plebiscite. I know you're happy about that. Will that be a game changer, Michelle, do you think?
Look, it will, Fran. I mean, I think the support for it in terms of an 85% vote, yes, is phenomenal. We will, I think, like towns and cities are changing, and even though we are the whole county, I think when you look at Clonmel and you look at dereliction rates and things like that, and it has been hit very, very hard over the last number of years. One of the things that our members will tell us, when they're trying to recruit employees, one of the things that people look at, is what's Clonmel like, and we want to be able to change that. We want to be able to change that for our members, and the bids process is going to allow us to be able to develop something that will be a game changer for Clonmel, and it's over a 5-year period. And I think we have a great team that are working on it, and I think the future will look positive over the next coming years in terms of bid.
And whether it's bids or something similar or whatever, is that the kind of outside the box thinking we need, is it?
I think it is, unfortunately. Look, our town centres are changing. We now need to develop things like something to go to, or an experience. You need a reason to go into town, and then on the back of that, then be able to enter into the shops and different things like that. If you look at bids throughout the UK, there's about 300 different bids companies in the UK. It's becoming phenomenal. I know Finland, their government just announced a huge amount of funding for new bid companies to be set up. So I do think something like this will be the future in terms of our town centres and things like that as well.
Interesting. In the meantime, get involved in the Chamber Business Awards.
Definitely. Look, Fran, as I said, we're not here to sell membership as much as I would love to, whatever, as I said, but the most important thing is, if you are a business within Tipperary, showcase it. Why not celebrate the success? If nothing else, it's branding for your own business in terms of letting people know that you're there. The amount of business that we come across, we say, geez, I didn't know that was there, or we had one in Tipperary. Free to do so. Log on to the Chamber website, and you have until the 5th to be able to do so. And if you have any questions, just give us a call and we'll give you a hand to fill out the application or answer any questions that you might have.
And the big night at the Manila is September 25th.
September 25th, yes.
All right. Good to see you as always, Michelle. Thanks very much indeed for that. News and information's on the way.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Paul. Welcome back to the second hour of Tipp Today. Listener on to say, could you get well wishes and a request for John Quinlan of Clondalkin, originally from Moyne in Tipperary. John's a regular listener. He loves coming on Tipp FM when he's well enough. He's in Tala Hospital presently, and I'd appreciate if you could give him a shout out also to his wife Angela and his kids Kitty, Tom, Mary and Sorka. And Mary and Sorka, I believe, are big fans of Rise Shelley, the Tipperary goalkeeper. And thanks very much. It says, sure, we know John well. He frequently contributes to us here on the programme. I think John's an accountant, as far as I know. John, we wish you the very, very best indeed. Looking forward to chatting to you on the programme again soon. Another listener on to say, Fran, I've been involved in my local church for 30 years. I do the readings, I give out Holy Communion, I help plan our events, but I'm so sickened that I cannot be a priest or a deacon. I've given my all to the Catholic Church, but I feel unappreciated, like I am just the help. I have been considering swapping to Church of Ireland, but the Holy Mother is so dear to me, says one of our listeners, and that's making reference to my conversation with Father Brendan Kilcoyne at the top of the programme. Just speaking to Michelle Aylworth there just before 10 o'clock from the Chamber. Barb was on to say they should build a convention centre on the old Superquin plot, or indeed the old Clonmel Arms site, with meeting rooms and a portable stage to bring in big events and live acts as well. We really need that in Tipperary. Every second week or so I play down in Killarney at the Glen Eagle, and they have such a facility down there with the INEC. They can take up to, 4,000 or 5,000 people at any one time. We need that badly in Tipperary, and we've needed it for some years, Barb, so I got along with that completely. Regular contributor to the programme, Muriel Walsh, spoke to me recently about President Catherine Connolly being awarded the Freedom of Clonmel. Now, while he supported her in the presidential election, he just didn't agree with the decision to bestow the honour on her, but he joins me again this morning. Good morning to you, Muriel.
Morning, Fran.
Good to talk. As I said, you were against the idea, but you did have problems with the nature of some of the protest.
Oh, yeah. Look, I laid out my views as to why I didn't think that President Connolly should have been awarded the freedom of Clonmel. But not to go all through that again, but there is a way to protest, and I think some of the things that I saw on social media where somebody was shoving a camera into Pat, or the Mayor of Clonmel, Pat English's face, and the First Citizen's face, President Connolly, as she arrived to the town hall, and roaring abuse at them was disgraceful, and it shown that's not what the people of Clonmel are about. And whilst you might disagree with the decision, as I say, there is a way to object to it, and that's certainly not the way to do it.
But you're not against protest per se, but you think this was just over the top, Muriel, is that it?
No. I mean, I think one of the fundamentals of democracy is that people are allowed to protest. I mean, I agreed with people's right to protest during the fuel disputes. What I didn't agree with, and not to go through all that again, what I did not agree with was people taking it upon themselves to block roads and prevent people from going to work. And in the same way, I felt that, I wrote to the various councillors, I wrote to our mayor. As I said, I laid out the reasons why I didn't think Catherine Connolly should not have been awarded it. But no, you have a right to protest, but there is a way to do it. And once the decision was made, she should have been given a proper welcome to the town, and every citizen in the town should have accorded her that welcome. And shoving a camera into someone's face and roaring abuse at her and shouting things at her that are actually above the presidency. I mean,
the role of the presidency, you mean? Is it?
The role of the presidency. Yeah. And I found that quite ironic, if that's the right word. That is shouting at her, where were you for this, where were you for that? Well, I'm afraid any president, unless there's a change in the constitution anytime soon, which I don't think there will be, can't involve themselves in political matters such as the ones that were being touted against her.
And I'm not trying to justify that sort of abusive protest or abusive behaviour in the least, but is it not reflecting the kind of anger and frustration that's out there, Muriel?
Oh, yeah, it is. There is an anger and there is a frustration out there. But I'm saying, why not just stand at the opposite side of the road with a placard? You know, why do we feel the need to roar at people?
Isn't that about social media, though? Isn't that about?
It is. But where is all this anger? Where's all this anger coming from, in the sense that I'm not talking about, I can understand where the anger is coming from about maybe people's difficulties, cost of living, housing, all those things that are very, very relevant and are putting a strain on families all over the country. But, shouting abuse as an elected official, shouting abuse at anybody is wrong, and shoving a camera into their face it's not right. And it is, And it is coming from social media, but it doesn't make it right. And I think that why not go down the road of someone like myself, if I have an issue, I might contact you, I might write a letter to the Irish Times, I might write a letter to the Irish Independent, I'll go on an anti-war protest or whatever. But I think shoving a camera into somebody's face and hoping to get a reaction and screaming abuse at them, that's not normal human behaviour, and it's unacceptable. It really is unacceptable, and I don't agree with it. And accosting someone on the side of the road, you would have seen it there in the recent by-elections where people are going out canvassing with candidates, and they're coming up to them and they're shoving the camera into their face and they're looking and goading and looking for a reaction. No, sorry, I'm not having that. That's not how a proper functioning society should work.
Well, the by-election, particularly the one in Galway with the Labour candidate Helen Ugbo, I mean, some of what was written about her on social media.
Yeah, it's racist. Call it what it is. It was racist, and I mean that's unfortunately the way we've gone, and social media, as I say, has led us to this point. But all it does is it has only enhanced it. It has only brought it to the fore. Or sorry, it's given it a voice, and it's given all these keyboard warriors a voice. And as I often said to you, up to 25 years ago, your voice was in the ballot box, your voice was in the newspaper, your voice was ringing Gail Byrne or ringing Frank Curry or ringing Seamus Martin or whoever happened to be in the seats at the time, ringing Joe Duffy. That was your voice. And I don't expect people to agree with me, but I don't expect people to abuse me.
Yeah, and again, I'm not excusing any of it, but there seems to be an awful lot of people now who feel that their cares and their worries are not being addressed by politicians. They're not being represented by their representatives.
Yeah, and I suppose that's true, and I suppose that has been, that kind of underbelly has always been there, and I think that, the global situations that we find ourselves in, one more time, I'd say it again, and I'm still saying it, is that Ireland are very, very exposed. We're not the most powerful country in the world that we think we are. We are a very proud nation, and we should be very proud. And this idea for centuries, or certainly since independence, when we went around with our cap in hand, tipping the hat to people, I'm glad we're eventually moving away from that. But however, I think you get the politicians that you elect, and certainly if you want to get people involved in politics and you want to get the brightest and the best, well, putting up images of candidates being abused, putting up writing stuff on Twitter, it's a bit like asking someone to become a referee. Why did you do it if that's your thanks? And
that's a very interesting point. So this sort of thing, do you think it's keeping the brightest and best from deciding to go into public life?
I think it is. I don't think we pay our politicians enough. There's a rogue statement for you. I think we've too many in the Dáil, but I think we should lessen the amount in the Dáil, and we should pay them more. We should have less TDs.
Oh Lord, no! I'd better tell Leanne now to be ready for what's going for the onslaught following that particular.
Sorry about that, Brian. Yeah. I didn't tell Leanne about that grenade I was going to take the tin out of. No, if you just hear me on. I think that TDs, for example, shouldn't be dealing with local issues. I think Phil Hogan and his administration did a terrible disservice to this country when they took away the power of local government and the corporations. I don't think that TD should be. I think TD should be in all legislation on national.
But you see, I don't think we want that, Murish. I think we want our TDs to be parish pump ready, and
Well, you can't have it everywhere, Frank. You can't. I mean, I think, we had a corporation in Clonmel. I can only speak from Clonmel's point of view, right? Because that's where I grew up, where you had 4 aldermen and you'd 8 corporation members, and there was a corporation meeting every Tuesday night, and people went about the parish pump, which was very, very important, and those issues. And of course, there was a lot of local houses being built, and which the local councils aren't doing anymore. So there was a lot more probably to do. But I actually believe that if you had less TDs, made them more accountable. I think no matter where you go in the world, people have the same complaint about the politicians. I don't think if you go anywhere, no matter where you go in the world, but you do get the politicians that you deserve. They're the people that you vote for. So if you want to find out, A, how popular you are, put your name down on the ballot paper. The people won't be long about telling you how popular you are. And B, if you want to make a real change, a chap that I have huge regard for, don't agree with him on everything he says, is Joe Hawkins. And I'm not making a political...
this is young Joe Hawkins. So what is he, 16 or 17?
He turned 18 there last week.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. And he's now eligible to vote. But there's a lad that's got himself involved in local issues, local activism, and good luck to him. But they're the kind of people that we need, and he hasn't been put off by the abuse yet. But I've always held that view, Fran, that there should be, TD should deal with national issues, and local councillors, county councillors should deal with local issues.
They're not always thanked for. I mean, one of our, I'm going to say it straight, one of the best politicians I think we ever had was the late Martin Manser, for example, and he wasn't thanked for being a genuine legislator, if you know what I mean, Mersh.
No, because he didn't press the flesh. He wasn't that kind of parish.
But that wasn't his thing, Even though he was the most pleasant man, but it wasn't his thing, really,
I know, and you're right. And I mean, he was one of my favourite people that I ever had. One of my best ever interviews was with Martin Manser. And I said it when he died, only for Martin Manser, Clonmel would be like Venice now. And his thanks was to lose his seat the following election, because he didn't go out and he didn't canvass on the back of that. He felt that he had a sense of duty. And one of the problems that politicians have, I think this is probably true of Irish politics, is that they don't have a self of serving. They don't have a sense of public duty, and that is a problem. And I think that they have, when they go into or get power, it's the fear of losing power is probably corrupts them. And I think as well, in the last 15 years, the rise of populism has blurred the lines an awful lot as well.
It's very interesting. Now, I obviously know all of our TDs pretty well. I would have been involved in social situations with some of them over the years. And the abuse that they take, though, I mean, no money would pay me for what they do, to be honest with you.
No. And I mean, somebody has to do that. And I mean, the thing is that it's a very, very important... obviously, it's a very, very important job. I mean, they go and represent us. They go and they legislate for the country. They set the rates of taxes that we pay, etc. And they have. But why should TDs go to Dublin 3 or 4 times a week and then have a constituency clinic as well? Why can't the local issues again be left to a local councillor and let the TDs deal with the national issues? I mean, Maura Gagan-Quinn, first female member of a cabinet since Countess Markovich back in Jack Lynch's government in 1977, famously never had a constituency office. She never had a...
Did she not? I didn't realise that.
No, she never did. No, she left it to the local councillors, and if there was a problem, then they'd come to her. If it led into a national issue, she would... And she made that known straight from the off, that she was going to Dublin, she was going dealing with it. And she could, obviously, the TDs, they can use their influence at national level. Of course they can. And if there's something needed in North Tipperary, of course the North Tipperary TD can go in and bat for that. But I think there's too many TDs. I really do. I've always had that view.
Can I ask you about something else before I let you go? Because I have to say, even though it was very serious to you, I did get a little giggle out of it. You were out for a walk with Rex, your dog, and you were listening to a podcast, but you got very annoyed with the podcast. Will you tell us why?
Yeah. Well, I get annoyed very easily. I was listening to a podcast about sport, and it was to do with the Premiership, and it was about this analytics in sport. Okay.
Yes.
And basically it goes back to the famous film with Brad Pitt and Bill James Moneyball in baseball, and basically how the use of analytics and statistics are used in sport.
Right. For people who might be sure about this, now, players in sports, they're kind of wired up, aren't they, to computers? And is that what this is about? To give?
Yeah. And their stats,
yes.
and their expected goal stats, and I just said to you, I turned it off because I'm gone to the stage now where the more I know about sport, the less I'm enjoying it.
But for somebody who loves sport like you, that's an incredible statement.
Yeah, because you see, the fun has been taken away out of it, because when I'm watching a game, be it soccer or hurling or whatever it may be, Gaelic football, these stats are introduced into it, and the expected goals was, and the one that really I don't want to use a bad word, but really annoyed me was where they put all the remaining fixtures into a computer, and it predicted who would win the league. Sports is not that scientific.
And were they correct?
They were correct on who won the league, but they weren't correct in the order of the rest of the teams. Yeah. And I think that this thing that's to me, sport has to be about spontaneity. Particularly, just take hurling. Yeah, it has to be about spontaneity. I mean, I put it as I'm always doing it with you, Fran. I put a musical spin on it, right? One of my favourite live albums is Tin Lizzy Live and Dangerous, right? Brilliant. It's nearly 50 years old, right? Brilliant album, right? And I say it to people, and they go, "Do you know that not all of that album was actually recorded live? That it was enhanced in the studio?" And I say, "I don't care. I don't care. It's still a brilliant album. I don't care."
But there's post-production and everything,
Yeah. So, but the thing about the sport is that, Fran had, he had 52 possessions and he had 48 shots on goal, and then, there was 63 passes infield and there was 62. So I just get totally bored with it. I don't want to know about those stats. I want to sit down. I want to watch the game. I want to see it with my own eyes. I want to make my own mind up. I listen to a bit of analysis of it, but I certainly don't need all this analytical bull, and this whole Moneyball thing, and people will understand what I mean by that, and that and it's just so it has the game, it has sport absolutely destroyed. That in the fact that you can't you take it now. We're into the silly season. We're into the off season in the Premier League now, where the whole thing of players will be rumoured to be signing for this club and that club, and the analysis that is, there's a team there now in every club. 3 or 4 people will go and look at the player on several occasions, and there'll be analysis done on his left foot, his right foot, how many shots he gets away, how many tackles he wins, and I'm there, and can he pass the ball? That's the first thing I'd say. I remember when Manchester United, my team, who I support, were looking for a new goalkeeper. They got rid of one goalkeeper because he wasn't good with his feet. And I'm kind of saying, well, is he good with his hands? That's the first thing I'd be looking at, as a goalkeeper, right? So all of that kind of stuff, it's just, and the one thing about it, I mean, one just before I go, where it came up was one thing I've absolutely no interest in is Scottish football, Celtic Rangers. I have no interest in
Why? Because of the political background to it, is it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the whole sectarianism, right? And it really, I have no interest in it, right? And but Martin O'Neill coming in as a 74-year-old who rails totally against all this analytical nonsense and Moneyball nonsense in sport, just took a team and won the league with Celtic. And whereas the Hearts team under Tony Bloom, who owns Hearts and owns Brighton, was all based on getting certain players based on analytics, not based on just performance or ability, but on analytics. He can run 4.6 miles in X amount of time, so we'll sign him as a right winger. Can he go past people? That's secondary. Can he tackle? That's secondary. That's the thing that annoys me. So that's what I'm saying. Like we're being flooded with all this information, And as I say, the more I know about sport, the less you get
but
to enjoy it.
It's not making the games any better. Is that what you're saying to me?
No, we're seeing too much behind. Yeah, we're seeing too much behind the curtain. I mean, when if I go to see a show, which I am on Saturday, I'm going to see a play. Once the curtain's pulled back, I see the characters. I don't want to know about the rehearsals. I don't want to know about who's interested in Best Oscar for costume design? Only people who are involved in that area of the arts. I mean, if you went to a table quiz tonight and you asked who won Best Actor at the Oscars, there's a certain amount of people would know. But if you asked them who won Best Editing, nobody would know,
Do you know who I feel sorry for? Is poor Rex.
Well, he had his walk this morning now, and we were listening to a bit of music. We didn't listen to any podcast, and he's asleep here next to me. He's very content in himself, and we're listening away to here. Can I just say about just one thing? It's just very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I thought your interview about that with that lady who would love to be a deacon was very, very sad. That's the word I would use.
Yeah. I felt sorry for somebody who put that much work and time into something and feels disrespected, I suppose, which is... Yeah,
it just sounded sad, and that's my own... I don't want to get into it, but that's my only comment on it. I just sounded very, very, very sad. And the thing is, but again, that's the way to protest. That's the way to voice your opinion. There's no need for her to shout at the bishop or the Archbishop of Cashel or the Bishop of Water. More.
Just to make her point in a respectful way, I suppose.
And put it out there.
All right. Good to talk to you as always, Mirish.
You too, Frank.
Thank you. That's Mirish Walsh speaking to us there, and Rex asleep in the basket beside him. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Listen said, I absolutely disagree with Mirish. Protests that are only suitable to government agendas do not work. Protests that do have impact are protests directly outside of politicians' homes. We need to do more of this. Now, I disagree with you profoundly on that. I think if you have an issue with a politician, it's with the politician, and protest all you want where that is concerned. I think taking something to somebody's family home is, just not right, not fair, I think, because the families don't put themselves up for office. Earlier on this week, Angela and Dave joined us on the show to share their journey navigating grief after the loss of a loved one. And Kat was in touch with us on social media to share some advice about dealing with grief. And Kat joins me now. Good morning, Kat.
Hi, Fred. How are you?
I'm well, and good to talk to you. And thank you so much for coming on with us today. You lost your parents. I think you lost them rather suddenly, Kat, did you?
Yeah, I lost them in 2009, just before Christmas. They both died in a house fire.
Oh, my God.
So it was... And I had lost my uncle/godfather 18 days beforehand. So I suppose in the space of 18 days, I've lost 3 loved ones. So it was very, very hard.
My God, how do you possibly deal with that, and how did you deal with that, Kat?
I suppose I went in shock because I was the one that was trying to get through to him that night. And I know my mother, I used to always talk to my mother every day. So I knew on a Tuesday she'd go to the Legion. Wednesday then when she wasn't answering the phone, I had a gut feeling something was wrong.
Yeah.
Where was she like? But it turned out she was at a funeral. And my father was at home, and when she came back, the house was on fire. So she, God love her, she tried to go in and save him, but they both perished. But so I suppose I was the one ringing around the family. Has anyone been talking to him? And nobody. My sister had been talking to him earlier on that day, and my brother was working up in Offaly, so he'd asked his friend to go and check on him. So my brother then rang me and said, "Oh, there's after been a fire. You need to get home." So I went home, and then I was told, so I was the one, like the youngest of the family, that had to kind of tell most of my family then. So there's a family of seven siblings, including myself. So I had to tell most of them. Now my husband told my sister. But yeah, so I kind of think just went into shock. My body went into shock straight away.
I'm sure you did. But how heroic was your mother to try and
my mother, she was
save her husband and your dad?
She was just an amazing woman. Like, she was so selfless. Like, she always put everyone else first before herself. She was just such an amazing. Now, I know I'm biased. Everyone would say about their mother, but she was. That's the first thing she thought about, was to go in and to save him.
What a woman! What a woman indeed.
Yeah.
You said an interesting thing. You said it brought the family together and made you even more close.
Yeah. So like, there would have been, like, we wouldn't have been. My brother would have been living over in America at the time, so he moved back home. And we're all in good contact. We have a family group. Now, like, some of us are in Dublin, some of us in Limerick, some of us in Galway, so we don't see each other, that regularly.
Yeah, sure.
But we always meet up every Christmas without fail. We always spend the night in a hotel in Tipp Town, and we have a meal. We do Chris Kindle, we have a few drinks, and then the next day we go to the grave. So it's always, every year we always do this. So it's a kind of a way to, to pay tribute to him every year.
And
so
it helps you in your grief, I guess, Kat.
Yeah, I think it does. Like, you see, I'm I'm a talker. I'll talk to people. If people, like, I would talk about them, I have no problem talking about them, which is good.
Yeah.
So I think that's what my siblings, we all helped each other through it, because we were all going through the same thing. So that's what would have helped us.
And in terms of advising people that might be recently bereaved, Kat, and might be really finding it difficult and really challenging, what would you say to them?
I just say, take one day at a time, and don't put yourself, if you're feeling like crap someday, don't put yourself under pressure. If you need to feel like you want to stay in bed, stay in bed. If you need to feel you want to switch off, like the day after the accident, I went into autopilot. So I was like, okay, I have to tape, like, I love Home and Away in Fair City. So I put all them into the Sky Planner to watch them. Yes. And I immersed myself into them to get my mind away. And you know what? It actually helped, like, so the fine weather when it came up. I had my wedding coming up, so that helped me. But when the wedding was over, then it went into a total lull. But I would just say to people, don't put themselves under pressure. And don't, and if you are able to talk about them, if you feel you can talk about them, talk about them. Talk about your loved ones, because I definitely found that helped me.
How soon after the tragedy was your wedding, Kat?
10 months. So I got married. They died in December, and I got married in October.
I'm sure your wedding was a happy occasion, but it must have been there in the background, though, all the time.
Oh, it was. Like, when we were walking up the aisles, my brother walked me up the aisle, so it was very hard. Like, I was bawling crying, and it was very somber. But then we had a really nice priest, and like, I had a cat, and I had asked, could the cat come to the wedding? And in the ceremony, he went on about the cat, and you know what? It lightened the mood. Then you could see on the video, everyone was so. And then as soon as he mentioned the cat, a marriage. What did he say? A marriage is between 3 people or 2 people, but in this case, Katrina wanted to bring her cat. Like, it just made it all kind of fun and what they call it. So, but I would definitely, and now, like, this is not for everyone, but I went to a medium. Around 5 or 6 months afterwards, and he was amazing. Oh my God, he knew.
Did you feel you connected with your parents through the medium?
100%. He said stuff that nobody could have known. He only knew my name, Katrina, and that I came from Limerick. That's all he knew. He didn't know anything else about me. So, like, I'm originally from Tipp Town, so he didn't know anything. He didn't know my second name. He didn't know anything. And he described like, it was unreal what he described. He described the fire. He described where they were found. Oh yeah, he described where my father was found, where my mother was found. He described where we lived. Oh,
and,
yeah.
Were you able to connect with your mother in the afterlife in some way? Or?
Well, we weren't talking, but he was just he just gave me a message.
Those messages were coming from her.
Yeah, so like he was able to see what I just felt. Such a comfort. I felt really happy after that. Like I felt, because I'm the type of person. A grave for some people would give someone really amazing comfort. To me, it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm the same as that. I'm the same as that.
Never. I visit the grave when we go down at Christmas.
Yeah.
I never, because to me, they're not there. So the way I look at it, if I saw a white feather, so on the day of my wedding, a white feather appeared in my wedding bouquet. So to me, that was that's what I believe in. I believe in all that. Like, so that gave me amazing comfort.
What an incredible story, indeed. I agree with you about the grave. My father was the total opposite. My late father, he used to go to my mother's grave every single day because that was for him. But it's not for me.
Everyone.
No.
It's not for me, sure. And it's not for me. Like I love being at home, even though like our family home now is different because obviously it had to be all redone up.
Yeah.
But I like being at home, and I like being like at the summer we might go camping there, and I just think it's nice for like us all to be together, and it's definitely like I think either a death will either drive your family apart or it'll connect your family.
Well, it certainly has connected yours for sure.
Yeah,
Kat, it was lovely to speak to you today, and thank you for sharing that story with us, Kat.
No bother at all.
Incredible story. Thank you indeed, and good morning to you. That's Kat Kavanagh speaking to us there. 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
Don't think I'll ever forgive Muriel Walsh for throwing that hand grenade into our conversation there about saying that politicians deserve to be paid more. A lot of people are very, very annoyed indeed about that. Two of the greatest songwriters of the 20th century, Elton John and Billy Joel, are getting the Candlelight Classics treatment at the Hotel Manila in Clonmel tomorrow night. Tipperary's Frank McNamara, longtime musical director, of course, of The Late Late Show, along with the Bridgerton String Quartet, return with the Piano Men, a beautiful new show featuring the hits of Elton and Billy, all performed, surrounded by candles. Well, Frank McNamara joins me now. Good morning to you, Frank.
Good morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Good to talk to you today. Where did the idea come from, Frank?
For candlelight concerts have been going on for years. I mean, it started off as Christmas carols by candlelight. I don't know who had that first idea going way back in churches. And then I did, I thought, wouldn't that be lovely to do Chopin concerts by candlelight? And I did a series of concerts all over the country with Chopin, playing Chopin. And then I did Mozart. And then I did Coldplay. And that was fantastic. More people prefer Coldplay than Chopin, unfortunately.
Wow.
And then we've done a whole load of them. ABBA, we did Irish rock legends, and now we're doing the Piano Men. I did a survey of 6,000 customers, and this was voted the most popular show. I said, what do you want me to do next? And this was the one that came out.
It's incredible. But of course, there's so many great songs, there's so many great melodies, I suppose, which is the secret of it all, isn't it?
Well, exactly, because, I mean, we're obviously doing instrumental versions. Yeah. Somebody said to me going into one of my concerts recently, he said, is there any singing? I said, yeah, there is. He said, oh, who's singing? I said, there's about 500. There's about 500 singers. He said, oh, God, you have a big choir. I said, yeah. He said, what are they called? I said, the audience.
And I presume they do sing along, I guess,
they do sing.
Yeah.
They love it. You know, it's an opportunity for them to sing along, and they know all the songs. I mean, it's extraordinary. Every single song is a big hit, you know.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and great music, and it's fun for us to play as well. You know,
I'm sure it is. And all your own arrangements, needless to say.
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. But so it's a piano and string quartet. together, piano quintet.
I'm sure it sounds gorgeous. I was just thinking, in fact, when I was reading out Elton John and Billy Joel, popular music today, where are the piano players, Frank? There's few, if very, very few of them, in fact.
Well, yeah. See, Brezi's made an album with piano music.
Oh, has he?
Recently.
Oh, okay, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. Okay.
Kind of like Ian Audi kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I suppose they're there. They're just in hiding. Well, I suppose recorded music, Fran, as you know, is becoming a thing of the past. So really, it's only the live concerts, and if you're not going to the live concerts, it's. My daughter played me something the other day, and she said, "Dad, I'm after writing a song." And I said, "Oh, great! I didn't know your old songs." I said, "Well, actually, I didn't write it. AI wrote it and sang it and recorded it." It sounded like this big American ballad. Mother God, I thought.
We did a piece on it a few months ago. I just couldn't believe. Are you kind of scared of that, Frank? Are you?
I don't scare easily.
At this stage, maybe not.
I use AI every single day in my business dealings, and it's such a fantastic thing. But there are people now putting AI generated songs onto Spotify. So the Spotify for the real composers has become a complete disaster, because it was very low pay anyway. I think you had to get, for 1 million streams, the amount of royalties you got was $1,100 for 1 million streams. Not many people get 1 million, and now it's going to be much less, because there's just more and more and more people putting up fake songs. And but well, it's like anything else. You have to adapt and move on. And I mean, I was advocating 10 years ago to people that they should give their recorded music away for free. But then we'd sell it off with newspapers, or give it to their local radio station to give it as gifts and give them away free, because it's the cheapest advertising they'll ever get. And then hopefully people will enjoy their music and come along to the gigs, because if somebody pays 30 quid in on a concert, or 35, that's how many CDs you have to sell.
Yeah, and it used to be the other way around, that you would tour to support an album, but now it's the touring that's making the profit, not the sale of the album, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I suppose it was always the money was always in the touring, but now it's the only thing that's left. Yeah, you can't get an AI generated. Yes, I'm sure they'll find a way of doing it. We'll have what you call videos or other AI.
It's interesting, isn't it? Are you amused as well with all you've done musically over the years? It always comes back to a mention, and I did it just there now as well, musical director of the Late Late Show. Does that still come back to, I won't say haunt you, but it's part of the conversation all of the time, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And no, I mean, it was a wonderful part of my life and my career. I got to meet so many fantastic people and to work with great people like Gabe Byrne, God rest him. I mean, what a gift that was to be able to work with somebody like that for 20 years. And it's always been a part of my life,
Yeah.
And I'm always introduced as the former Late Late Show.
Absolutely. Can I throw something? I should have given you notice of this, but in terms of accompanying people on the Late Late Show, was there something that stands out, or somebody that stands out in particular?
In a good way or a bad way?
Well, let's take the good way first.
Maybe. Disasters.
All right. Well, go on with the disasters then. I'd love to hear this. Go on.
The disaster was Katharine Hepburn. I think it was Katharine Hepburn. I always get her and Audrey mixed up. But anyways, one of the Hepburns. Yeah. One of the Hepburn girls. We were on the stage in the Cork Opera House because the Eurosong or Eurovision or National Song Contest was on in our studio in Donnybrook. So we made a rare visit out of the studio. So we had 1,000 people in the hall, and there was 1 million people watching. And Gay said to me, "I'm going to ask her to sing, but she doesn't arrive until 10 o'clock, so you won't be able to rehearse with her." And I said, "Sure, I was only 19 or 20. I didn't care." I said, "That's grand." And so she comes on at about 11 o'clock, and she she starts, she does the interview, and then Gay said, will you sing a song? She said, oh, well, I've no accompanist. And she said, you have. Frank is sitting there by the piano. And, does he know I could have danced all night? Frank, do you know? I said, of course I do, yeah. But I'm thinking about the chorus. I got to dance all night. Right? At that time in my life, in 1980, I didn't know the verse, which goes through about 40 million different keys.
Yeah.
Dance, dance, I should have gone to bed. Da, da, da. So I went off. She comes over to me and I said, what key? And she said, the key of C. So I went, expecting her to go, I could have danced. No, not at all. The way she goes into the verse, and I hadn't a second clue where she was. And every time I catch the key, the second key would change again. And it was like it was a setup. And I could feel, and I wanted the ground to open and swallow me. I thought, this is it. I'm over. This is it. 20 years of age, career finished. In front of a million people. I thought it's only about 16 bars long, that verse, but I thought it would never get to the chorus. It was the longest verse in the history of my life.
Yeah, I had something similar with Tina many years ago. I was playing open air and she came on and I got the dots of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And it was a miserable day, and the bloody thing blew off the stand down onto the thing.
Oh, no.
Oh, Lord. But she was such a professional, and I was making this...
She was fantastic.
Oh, she was brilliant.
I loved working with Tina. I did a lot of orchestral arrangements for her back in the day.
Super
and
artist.
She was a great super artist.
Yeah, beautiful woman indeed. And I was reading Shane Ross's book recently, and of course it came up again, the old story about the Northern Ireland Secretary Peter Brook and Oh My Darling. Did you play the piano behind him that infamous night? Oh my God!
I'm the only musician probably in history that was instrumental in bringing down a government, bringing down the British government. I mean, the IRA tried to do it for 100 years, and I did it in 3 minutes.
Did you know the enormity of what was happening when you were playing behind him?
No, we see, because I had no time. Well, and I'd never think about stuff like that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Anyway, I wouldn't have known the lyrics. You know, they are lost and gone forever, as Ian Paisley said on the news later on.
God, yeah.
But,
and of course, the construction workers were killed by the IRA bomb that day.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. He was supposed to sing Danny Boy. And at the last minute, he decided to sing Oh My Darling, Clementine. And sure, I didn't care. I just played it with him. And then for the next 48 hours, they showed me and him on Sky News every like 10 minutes or whatever the bulletins are on Sky News, non-stop.
Oh my God.
And as a result, the DPP, is it DPP? Not the DPP.
The DUP. The DUP,
yeah. DUP pulled out of supporting the Conservatives, and on the next vote then the government collapsed as a result of that song.
Of Oh My Darling Clementine. Isn't it just amazing?
I feel I should have some kind of a plaque or something to acknowledge my part in the Irish struggle.
But do you know what you should do, though, says he, giving out advice freely this morning? You should write a book.
Oh, well, do you know
but
what?
Seriously, it would be so entertaining.
I know. But you know what? They say the truth is stranger than fiction. Most of the stuff that have gone on in my life you wouldn't believe. So you'd think I was making it up.
It's been a hell of
no one would believe it.
It's been a hell of a journey.
Maybe one of these days.
Yeah, well, you see, I can't wait for that. So tomorrow night then, the Manila Hotel. If people want to get tickets, there's still a few left, I think, maybe.
Eventbrite, yes, there are. There are a few tickets left. And it's now that the hurling is gone, which has broken my heart this year, and I'm sure many other of my fellow Tipperary people, at least something to look forward to.
Wouldn't it be just good? And is it literally thousands of candles? I know that's what's said here, but it is.
Yeah. Well, I actually have 3,000. We don't use them all. It depends on the size of the venue.
Yeah.
But we'll probably have about 1,000 there tomorrow.
Oh, that's great. But it's a beautiful room with a lovely acoustic in it.
So, and you know what? Yeah. The food there is fantastic.
That's for sure.
That's one of my favourite places to go.
Absolutely. John and Liz will look after you extremely well indeed. Frank, it's always a pleasure. Have a ball tomorrow night. It's going to be fantastic there. Always a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks,
Frank.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's the great Frank McNamara. If you can at all, make your way to the Manila tomorrow night. He's one of my favourite musicians. He's just an incredible musician. I mean, he is as good as it gets. He's a jazzer, he's a classical pianist, and indeed a popular musician as well, and an arranger to boot. And news and information is coming up.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Paul. Welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today. Werish was talking, well, he was talking about several things. He annoyed the hell out of a lot of people by saying that politicians should be paid more. But he was also talking about sport, and he was saying that, you know, he doesn't necessarily want to know what's going on behind the scenes of sport. But one of our listeners on to say, I'm a big Formula One fan, and I am obsessed with the engineering and the aerodynamics around the sport. That's what I find entertaining, and all of the background and the tactics, and it must all work in harmony to win the championship. So there you go. Now, I suppose, I'm not a sporty as you know, I suppose he would argue that's a different kind of a ball game, because it's all about the engineering and such, whereas the other thing has the human elements to it. But anyway, there you go. It's time for Wellbeing. Delighted to be joined by Muriel and Charlotte in the studio. Good morning to you both, and thanks for coming in to us today. Muriel, can I go to you first of all, because we're going to talk about vitamins and minerals and what the body needs and whether we need them at all, because maybe we should be getting them through food.
It's funny because I get it, the reason I'm doing it is education. So I want to give as much as I possibly can, because I get asked so many questions on it, and there's only so much you can do in social media posts, and a lot of people don't follow on social media or whatever, or not on social media. So should we supplement? Right. Supplements are there for a reason, but they're kind of top of the triangle. So yes, you're supposed to get it from the baseline up. So you're supposed to get it through your food. There are so many people not getting it through their food. So the deficiencies are there. And even, I suppose, in the food that we're eating today, the same amount of minerals and vitamins aren't in it that would have been in it years ago. So should we supplement? I think if you're missing something, you most certainly should. But you have to figure out what it is you're missing. So you don't just take a multivitamin and hope it's going to cover all bases. It doesn't. And then I have a lot of people coming in that are like on blood thinners and on a lot of medication already. So a lot of supplements can cross over. So you have to be aware. And a lot of people take a lot of the anti-inflammatory herbal pieces, you know, like curcumin and those kinds of things. Resveratrol, am I pronounced that right? No? Resveratrol, yes, yeah. So things like that, and they cross over blood thinners, you know, so you need to know what to take and when to take it. And you know, even for people that are very well, Fran, and that have no no signs or symptoms or whatever, you sometimes need to get yourself checked as well. And just actually see, yes, how am I doing? I'm taking vitamin D every day, I'm taking vitamin C, I'm taking whatever. Should I be taking it? Do I need to take anything? So it's today's an education piece for both of us.
It's interesting, and the vitamin D that you mentioned there, that's the one that the sun should give us, but we see so little of.
That's right.
So does that make an argument that every Irish person should be on?
Yeah, definitely. Like, so your vitamin D, you should definitely be taking it from like September around to May. I think we have to supplement. And even with the sun we've gotten in the last 3 days, people go out and they're like out in it for whatever, and they're burnt, and that's not doing you any good. Even to get your level of vitamin D from the sun, you go out in the morning, say like any time between say 9-10 o'clock, that kind of time, bare neck. You know, even if you have bare, like your head is bare arms, things like that, you take it in or get in as much as you can. You don't really put sunscreen on for the first, now Charlotte will probably kill me on this, but for the first 10 or 15 minutes, you try and absorb as much as you possibly can. And again, late afternoon, so around 4 o'clock. So, you know, the UV rays aren't at their highest, but you can still absorb some of it. But you have to, like, to me, even with the perimenopausal symptoms, like deficiency in vitamin D, there's so many different things there. Like, if you avoid deficiency in vitamin D, like, you even have a 40% less risk of developing dementia, you know, if you're predisposed to it. The inflammatory side, like, I see lots of CRP, that's an inflammatory marker, right? When I take their inflammatory markers and that's high, then I test for vitamin D, and most of the time I'll actually see that the vitamin D levels are low. So, like, vitamin D goes with so many different things.
Now, I took you off on a tangent to vitamin D. What else have you got there for us?
Well, I have so many. I suppose for me the inflammation side is the biggest one, and for me I want to talk about what people ask me about every day. So they're asking me things like, do I take, you know, your turmeric, so do I take that, and how do I take it? So that comes in your curcumin, you know, that's the base form of it, whatever. That helps decrease inflammation in diabetes, heart disease, inflammatory bowel disease, disease, some cancers, so many other things. So yes, it does work. It does help to reduce inflammation, and it does improve symptoms of osteoarthritis, etc. So that's very simple. 500 milligrams a day. You can get it in, your spice shaker or whatever. Yeah, so you can take in that, and you can put it like in so many different things. Put it in your salads, put it in smoothies, but you have to put your black pepper with it. So when you put your black pepper with it, you make it about 3,000 times more potent. So it's like you're actually activating it. So that's really important, right?
Wow.
So the second one then for me is omega-3s. So this isn't really, it's a fatty oil, the fatty oils or whatever, but it's not a vitamin of such. But the fish oils are so important. Me with the gut health, number one, but to reduce inflammation on so many levels. And now fish oils is in your EPA and your DHA. You need to actually go to like a good health shop, say like here in Clonmel, like the Honey Pot or whatever, and ask them, have they got something good? Like I can name things like Eskimo oils and krill oils and things like that, but you need to get something that is researched and that you're looking at, say, like something like 2 grams of your both a day combined EPA and DHAs. The next one is ginger. So I'm going to fly through these because I know this is taking a bit or whatever. But ginger, again, about 2 grams a day. And ginger even though it does cross over with blood thinning, so you need to be careful, right? But ginger is known to have a positive impact on your HbA1c. So if you have type 2 diabetes, it can actually help reduce your numbers.
And does that come in capsule form, or again is that spread on your food?
You can take it any which way you want, but I would really recommend ginger in the morning. So ginger and cinnamon for me in the morning, like in your water or whatever, and take it consistently over 3 months, for 3 months. This is one of the things as well people aren't good at, consistency. So when you start, don't put them on the worktop and take them for a week and feel like you're flying, and then forget that you have them for 2 weeks.
But is this not the problem around supplements and vitamins? We don't see an immediate reaction from them.
But this is where the world has to, I suppose, stop and think, as in the immediate reactions we're getting from meds are killing us. So we're ending up on meds like, more and more and more tablets, and that's not doing us any good. So we have to take a step back. And for me, with the vitamins, whatever I would take in the morning, Fran, is literally left where the breakfast stuff is. So it's on that windowsill, straight in front of me.
You're prepared. We'll come back to more of that in a moment. But Charlotte, where hair loss is concerned, I mean, where do deficiencies play into this?
I suppose the most common one that people are aware of is iron. That's the one that I would hear about the most. People come into me and they say, I think my iron is low. So quite often they'll come in and we'll do the blood test. And sometimes their iron is low, yes, so we can educate the people on what they need to do. Iron's essential because it carries oxygen to the follicle. But for me, what's more important is ferritin. So sometimes people come in with blood tests. They'll say, look, I've been to the doctor, my iron is normal, what's going on with my hair? And I'll say, have you tested your ferritin level? And they might say no, or what is that? So ferritin is like our stored iron. It's like a cupboard where we keep the iron. And that's the one that you really need to test for hair loss. It's the most important one because stored iron, our body's very clever. It knows that if our iron is low, it will actually pull reserves from the stored iron and redirect it to the vital organs. Our hair is not an essential tissue. So the very first sign of iron deficiency is always the hair. The body knows.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's not needed here. It's needed over here in the vital organs to keep you alive. So the ferritin stores are really, really important. So I always make sure that when I'm doing an iron profile for someone, it includes ferritin.
Is that both with men and women?
Men and women.
Okay.
Yeah. Stored iron is far more important because you're pulling out on those reserves all the time. Muriel mentioned vitamin D, so I won't go into detail, but vitamin D, it's impossible to have healthy hair if you don't have sufficient levels of vitamin D because vitamin D actually creates the cells that make the follicle. So if you have insufficient levels of vitamin D, you cannot produce new hair follicles and you can't maintain the ones you have. So those follicles become dormant and you actually start to shed the hair. So it's really important. If you have vitamin D deficiency, it looks different from iron deficiency hair loss. It's very diffuse shedding.
Yes.
So it will be all over the hair. Whereas quite often you'll see with iron, the hair becomes quite brittle and dry and frizzy. Whereas if you have vitamin D deficiency, you will actually find sort of widespread hair thinning. And then zinc. I think zinc is one that people don't really think about or talk about. I'm not sure why. Quite often you can buy zinc and magnesium. I've heard Muriel recommend that to people before. But if we don't have adequate sources of zinc, it's not possible to synthesize protein. So we can't actually create protein, and that's what hair is made out of. So you'll see that hair becomes really dry and brittle and it begins to break.
I see what you're saying now about education, about people knowing this kind of thing.
This is, like, where do you find this? So you can go on Google and you can look up different things, but there's crossovers and everything. So for us, education is everything. If you know what to do, that's huge, isn't it, Frank?
Yeah, but I presume you would guide people to proper eating, though, to to get some of these
proper eating is number one.
Right. But you're saying what we're buying to eat now as well is in its own way.
It's not in it, but like some of the things I've said there, Fran, like I've mentioned ginger, I've mentioned cinnamon, like I've mentioned things like that we can get through our foods. Like even talking about the fish aisles, like your fish, you know, like your tuna and salmon, sardines and things like that. You know, your turmeric, you can put that into your food stuff. So what I've mentioned here, we can still actually add to things. You know, and you can do it like very simply without overthinking it. Like even green tea, like is top of the list for antioxidants, top of the list like for anti-inflammatory. Like there's even studies done with green tea for men. What I think about over the age of 50, overweight, took it consistently 3 times a week, paired with exercise over 3 months, and they lost something like 10 to 12% of their body weight. Now, the exercise was there as well, but because they were reducing inflammation, you know, that's what helped. Garlic is another one. Like, you can add garlic to everything. This is the time of the year. So 2 grams of fresh garlic a day, that's about 1 clove. That's kind of the portion size.
No friends, but healthy.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking there straight away, garlic bread or something like that. People are going to think it straight away, yeah.
But how do you take garlic properly, if you know what I mean?
You can crush it. So you can crush garlic, and you can put it on your bread. So if you have a nice sourdough and you want it during the summer, like, you can actually crush it up, like loads of people do that. And, you know, you can put it with your olive oil or whatever. You know, you can put it in anything you're cooking, slow cooker, anything like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't like... Yeah, because you will. I know straight away when somebody comes into me if they've taken garlic the day before. Just take the capsules, you know.
Yeah, as Irish people, we're not all that fond of garlic for some reason or other, but there you go. Did I see you on social media talking about these powders as well? Did I see you?
Yes, you did. The protein powders, the creatine, yeah. Creatine for me is one of the big ones, that it's actually one of the most well-researched supplements that are out there at the minute with no real known side effects. Right, so creatine for cognitive health. So creatine draws water into the muscle, right? So you're looking at like the bigger piece in the body is like, is the brain hydrated? Is the heart muscle hydrated? You know, are the muscles in the body hydrated? So when somebody comes to me, I fuel it first of all is in we start eating fat and protein to make sure you have muscle mass. Muscle mass is like your strength, your mobility, your flexibility, your ability to move going forward. But people forget about the brain, and they're treating now early onset Alzheimer's with creatine. So if you're drawing water into the muscle, you can actually picture the brain as it would be, say, dehydrated, and now you're actually hydrating it. Any person I have on it, be it male or female, come back to me within 3 months and I will say to them, what's the biggest difference? Their muscle mass, they start maintaining instead of dropping. So they've been dropping muscle mass on the body analysis machine. And when their muscle mass starts to maintain or even starts to go up with no extra exercise on any level, they'll actually say, I can remember things, Muriel. This is amazing. A girl even said to me yesterday, she said, I used to write down all my appointments and I had to go through my book. And she said, I'm actually starting to remember who's coming into me.
I need a gallon of this, obviously. How does it work? It's a powder and you mix it with water.
It's a powder and it's very simple, as in there's it's not complicated to buy it. Like, it's creatine monohydrate. Most of the supermarkets even have it now, but if you want to go to like a trusted source, Honeypot or whatever, you're literally taking a 5 gram. I think you have shares
in the Honeypot.
Yeah, I know. I love the buys in the Honeypot if they're listening. My medicinal doctors. But anyway, what I was going to say, it's 5 grams. The scoop is in it.
Yeah.
So you literally take a scoop out, take the top, just flatten the scoop, and the best way to take it is in warm water. So you take it in warm water so it dissolves properly. So you're taking about half a glass of warm water, and if you put a tiny pinch of Himalayan salt or sea salt in, it helps absorb it.
Very good. Now if you're prone to a few extra pounds like moi, is that not going to play into to weight gain or something?
No, and that's what people think. That's really false advertising. It draws water into the muscle, so people think that you're going to look like you're puffed up or whatever. Yeah. The 5 gram dose doesn't do that. It's such a microdose. It's literally, like Charlotte said, with the iron, etc., it just goes to where the body needs it, the same as collagen. Okay, so your body's going to utilise what it's taken in. It also makes you drink water, so you do become a little bit more thirsty with it. And if you're taking it, you should be drinking about 2 litres of water a day, because you're drawing water now into...
But it does help the old head.
I liken it, you'll smile at this. So I'm sitting across from Pat Fox's pub, right? So I'm looking out the window and that pub is black. If somebody came along at the weekend and painted the pub green or pink, whatever colour, right?
Yes.
I could be sitting there for 3 months and somebody could say, Jeannie, when did Pat paint the pub pink? I'd be like, oh, it's pink. And I wouldn't have noticed.
Right.
That's like 18 months to 2 years ago. But since I'm taking the creatine and doing it consistently, I even say to Charlotte, even like reading a book and like studying and stuff, you're not going over the same line.
You're absorbing.
I'm literally, you know the way you could read the paper there and you might read the same sentence 10 times and it doesn't go in.
I'm going to rush out to the shop and buy this straight away. Where the skin is concerned, because that's your field of expertise as well, Charlotte, how do you notice if somebody has a deficiency by their skin?
I think it's one of those things that's actually quite difficult to detect because nutrient deficiencies in the skin, they mimic other conditions. So if your skin was dry and rough and flaky, you wouldn't sort of automatically guess that you're low on essential fats, for example. You'd probably think that you need a new moisturiser, or you might attribute it to the weather or central heating. Or if you had a rash or inflamed skin, for example, you mightn't sort of jump to I have a zinc deficiency, vitamin A, or a B3 deficiency. It often mimics other things, so it can be quite tricky when we talk about nutrient deficiencies. But I think it's really important to note that when we do get our blood results back, what's considered normal for health isn't the same for skin and hair. So the parameters are much higher for skin and hair for the reason I just mentioned. So if you go to your GP or a hospital, or even the results that come back from the lab, they're measuring those markers based on health. Your GP wants to make sure that you don't have an acute illness or you're suffering from a viral infection or some weird thing. Once you meet those parameters, the doctors are happy. You're alive, you're well, that's fine. But there's a reason that trichology and dermatology are completely separate from that. We work off of different parameters.
So do you find people coming in saying, look, my bloods are completely normal, but here am I shedding hair? Is that something you come across?
All the time. Like, even if we look at ferritin, like I was just saying, stored iron is considered normal 30. That's what a doctor will say. If you're 30, that's fine, that's acceptable. That means you're not anemic. That's fine. But in terms of optimal hair growth, it has to be 70 to 150, which is dramatically different. So to come back and say that your bloods are normal, I always say normal for what?
Yes.
Okay, you're not anemic, but you haven't actually met the threshold for healthy hair growth yet.
Interesting. And what you would advise then for them to take by way of vitamins or minerals for skin specifically, what would they
I'm
be?
actually in a different camp to Muriel. I don't believe in supplementation.
Okay.
I believe in getting it through the diet because, for example, if we take a vitamin D supplement, fine, okay, that's going to elevate our vitamin D, it's going to be wonderful for our skin. But if we get the vitamin D through oily fish, we're also getting the omega-3s, we're getting our protein, we're getting our collagen, we're getting iron, we're getting calcium. So for me, I always push people towards the dietary side. And yes, it is easy to get people to supplement, but for skin health, the vitamin D on its own is not enough. So they would have to go to the shop and they'd have to get omega-3s, they'd have to get vitamin D, calcium, iron, then you'd have to take collagen and some kind of protein powder. Whereas if they just ate the fish, they get it all in one meal. So when people come into me for hair and skin, I'm always pushing that. Now, I have to say, my patients are very different from Muriel's. If you're losing your hair, you will do anything to grow it back. So I feel like the people that come into my room, they're probably a bit more open, I think, to doing that. Whereas I think if people are coming in for nutritional reasons, perhaps they've struggled with getting their diet right in the past. It's just a different thing. But when people are losing their hair, they will literally do whatever it takes.
That's very interesting. And when you speak about oily fish, how many times a week?
Well, I would eat fish 2 to 3 times a day.
Wow.
I know.
A day?
A day. Yeah, I know. It sounds completely mental, but look at my skin. I'm not wearing any foundation. You know, I am literally a picture of health because my diet is 80% good. Obviously, the weekends are a different story, but our skin is an organ. I say it every time I come in here. It is the largest organ in our body, and we wear it outside. So if you think of your heart, your liver, your kidneys, they're in a very controlled environment. Our skin isn't. It is open to the elements. Every single thing that comes at it, our skin has to absorb that. So if we're not putting the right foods in, we can't expect this organ on the outside to function as it should.
It's very interesting, Charlotte, but I mean, if I go down the road of the oily fish and I smother it with a lovely cheese sauce or something, am I completely kind of destroying the...
I don't talk about weight in my room. So obviously the cheese, we don't like inflammation, the saturated fats, particularly if we're talking about...
Well, I'm just picking cheese, but whatever kind of sauce...
Yeah, if it was something, that
would that take the goodness from the oily fish?
It wouldn't take the goodness out of it, but what you're doing then is you're causing inflammation elsewhere in the gut. So maybe you're going to have malabsorption of the iron. It's going to cause, issues with acne, inflammation in the follicle.
Yeah.
So for me, when people come in because they're struggling with hair or skin, it's not some short-term solution, just take this supplement.
Yes.
It's a lifestyle change for life. If you want to have healthy hair and skin for life, then you have to make these changes for life. With anatomy and physiology, there is no one size fits all. It's a continuation, isn't it?
Well, there is an element of crossover. I mean, I presume you would be going with a diet for life as well as everything else.
Totally. And because people will say, even to eat organic and everything, how expensive it is. Like, supplements are very expensive. Yeah. To take anything like that is next thing is you're at €100 or whatever. Yeah. So if somebody can get everything through their diet, wonderful. But if they can't and they're deficient in something, so 1 month in, when the bloods are back, etc., and I can see somebody might be like really deficient in vitamin B12 or vitamin D or something, I have to then give him an extra tool that
Of
we can
course,
actually
yeah.
bring this up while we're managing
And
the diet
do you
side.
take my point that you could have the healthiest of food and then you smother it in something?
That's I get so much of that.
Yeah.
Like, I am eating fish, Muriel. I've Donegal catch twice a week. Do you know what I mean? I get so much of that. I have to be so soft. I have to go very whatever. Like, well, that's okay, but can we
But that's
actually
not
do
what you're talking
can we do
about.
it this way?
Of course,
And
yeah.
again, Fran, it's education because people don't know. That's what I keep saying. So that's why I want to give as much as we possibly can.
Are there other powders you want to talk to us about? Protein powders as well?
Well, the protein powders are there as well, and that's a huge one. And I even got a WhatsApp from one of my patients about her son, and he's 13, and he had bought online. So he'd bought the protein powder, and he'd also bought gummies. So he'd bought the creatine gummies, and he'd also bought another one that was like a de-bloat, right? So she messaged me last night, and she said, Muriel, I had said, no, they're not good. And he said he's taken them. What is your whatever advice on it? And I said, well, the de-bloat ones, there's nothing in them. They were like a herbal product. There was only 2 or 3 different herbs in them. So I said, you can leave him take them if you want, but the message is wrong. I said, you most certainly cannot take the creatine and the protein powder. He's too young. So it's going back to that age now, which is just crazy. For older people, protein is out there everywhere, that we should be taking in like 70, 80, 100, 120 grams protein a day. And people are going to the more synthetic side of it, like the protein yogurts and stuff, and now the powder, they're putting it into everything. If you have any gut-related issues, the protein powder isn't going to agree with you because it's synthetic. Look at the back of it and see how much is in it. It's a whey protein, so it's processed, right? There are some protein powders that are very good. I don't know if they want to ring, I can give them brand names or whatever. And they're made from, like Charlotte just said, marine collagen is in it, but they've like coconut milk powder, pea protein powder. So they're actually very natural source. So do I agree with them? Again, get it from your food. But if I feel somebody is literally, and again, vegan and vegetarian, it's very hard to get your numbers up, then you have to get it from somewhere else.
Interesting. If people want to speak to yourself or Charlotte, how can they do that?
Can I just quickly tell them when to take the vitamins, Fran, if that's okay?
Yeah.
So the ones not to take at night, so you don't take your vitamin D, it interferes with your melatonin and your sleep. Don't take B complex because it'll give you energy. You don't need that going to bed, right? So your B12 is in the morning, your C is any time of the day. Your iron is on an empty stomach with plenty of water, okay? Any of your fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E and K, take them with fat. So take them like after breakfast or take them with like a few nuts or something like that. Magnesium, your glycinate is at night, your calcium is at night. Just to...
All right, very important indeed. Your phone number, your contact details?
Yes, it is 062 88002.
All right, great to see you both. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks, Charlotte. Thanks, Muriel. We'll take a break and we're back with Hidden History in a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Yeah, an old friend of mine, Gary Brahan, on to say, Fran, on the subject of AI concerts, didn't ABBA do virtual concerts with them as avatars on stage, and they made millions from it? They did indeed, and I think they were among the first to do it. I know they ended up doing it with some of the Elvis Presley concerts after a while, and seemingly it looked amazing and was very successful. You give me an idea now, Gary. You see, I might be able to sit at home in Anacarty and send out the avatar to the social dancing. I wonder how that might work out. Anyway, there you go. 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Marion is in Carrick. I think that's my friend Marion down in Carrick. And she said, could you repeat the name of the stuff to help the brain? I need it. I've got no retention. The same as that, Marion. I think it's creatine. Is it spelled Creteine? Leanne might check that for me. I think it's called creatine. Anyway, on this month's episode of Tipperary's Hidden History, Conor turns his attention to the Sisters of Mercy in Nina and the remarkable women who transformed indeed a prison into a convent and a school, and they ran a public hospital near the ancient grounds of Tion, and whose story stretches from the streets of post-famine Dublin to the American Deep South. With the help of the 1926 census, Conor introduces us to some of these women by name, reminding us of lives that were quietly faithful and almost entirely unrecorded.
Have you ever walked past the old convent in Nina and wondered about the women who lived there? Or driven through Tyrone and given a passing thought to those who built what we now know as Nina Hospital? Tyrone, of course, is a place with a remarkable depth of history, home to an Augustinian friary dating back to the early 13th century, and believed by many historians to be the site of the first stone hospital in Ireland. Care and faith have deep roots in that ground, and on the night of Sunday the 13th of April 1926, a census enumerator recorded the details of 40 women, sisters of the Sisters of Mercy, sleeping in 2 separate locations in the town, continuing a tradition of care on that ancient site that stretched back nearly 800 years. 35 of them were in the main convent in the centre of the town, the remainder in the hospital at Tyrone. Tucked in alongside them in that hospital were 5 lay staff members, a wardsman, servants and a lay nurse, and 43 patients. Today on Tipperary's Hidden History, we meet some of those women, who they were, where they came from, and how they came to be in Nina at all. To understand why those 40 women were in Nina on that April night in 1926, we need to go back almost a century earlier to Dublin and to one of the most remarkable women in the history of Irish Catholicism. Catherine Macaulay was born in Dublin in 1778, the daughter of a prosperous Catholic family. Orphaned young, her fortunes changed dramatically when she became the companion and household manager of a wealthy Quaker family named Callahan, who lived at Coolock House on the north side of Dublin City. When the Callahans died, they left their considerable estate to Catherine, and she used that inheritance in a way that would change the lives of countless thousands of Irish women and girls, and ultimately reach as far as Nina, County Tipperary. In 1827, Catherine used that money to build a large house on Bagot Street in Dublin, a school for poor girls, and a shelter for vulnerable women. There was no grand religious plan at first. Catherine simply wanted to help, and she gathered like-minded women around her to do just that. But the scale of what she was building, and the pressure of critics who questioned what these women were doing and under whose authority they were doing it, made formalisation inevitable. On the 12th of December 1831, Catherine Macaulay and 2 companions made their religious profession, and the Sisters of Mercy were born. She was 53 years old. In 10 extraordinary years between that foundation and her death from tuberculosis in 1841, she established foundations across Ireland and beyond, including, in the very last weeks of her life, a foundation in Birr, County Offaly, just across the border from Tipperary. The Birr Foundation would prove to be the direct seed of everything that followed in Nina. 13 years after Catherine Macaulay's death in 1854, the Bishop of Killaloe, Daniel Vaughan, invited the Sisters of Mercy to come from Birr to Nina to take charge of the National School for Girls. The town they arrived into was not the Nina of today, nor even the confident market town of the decades before the famine. This was a community still carrying the weight of catastrophe. The newspaper reports of those years speak of heartrending scenes outside Nina Workhouse. The dead and the displaced had left their mark on every street and townland in North Tipperary. Into that broken landscape came a small group of women from Birr, ready to teach, to nurse, to visit the sick in their homes, and to build something lasting from the wreckage of famine Ireland. In 1887, 33 years after their arrival, the Sisters of Mercy took possession of a substantial portion of Nina's old county jail, and they turned it into a convent, a school, and a place of learning and care for the people of North Tipperary. Think about what that means for a moment. Nina Jail had been for decades one of the most feared addresses in the northern half of the county. It was a place where the poorest and most desperate people of this region Men and women broken by poverty, by hunger, by circumstance had been confined, punished, and in some cases executed. The very walls that had once imprisoned the vulnerable of North Tipperary were now under the determined hand of the Sisters of Mercy to shelter and educate their children. If you were looking for a symbol of transformation of post-famine Ireland, you would be hard-pressed to find a more powerful one than that. The woman who drove that transformation was Mother Anastasia Beckett, who mobilised the support and the resources necessary to make the purchase possible. On the 24th of June 1887, the Governor's House and Grounds, the entire female prison, 2 infirmaries and 4 prison blocks were formally handed over for educational purposes to the Sisters of Mercy. In 1905, a 999-year lease was granted to the trustees of that order. Specifically, the records tell us, for the education of the people of North Tipperary. Demolition of some of the old prison blocks began, and gradually the buildings were transformed. The Governor's house became the convent. The stores became classrooms. A large room in the prison block was given over to needlework. One of the old workshops was converted into a cookery and laundry room. By 1911, a new primary school had been completed on the site, and by 1913 a new convent building followed. The jail was becoming, stone by stone and year by year, something its original architects could never have imagined. And so, we return to that night in April 1926. The enumerator's form for the convent records 35 women, Sisters of Mercy, living and working in the shadow of those old jail walls, in a building that had been transformed over the previous 4 decades from a place of punishment into a place of purpose. Their names are listed in careful handwriting on the census form, and even at a distance of almost a century, those names speak to us. O'Connor, Sweeney, Fogarty, Coughlin, Leahy, McMahon, Slattery, Carew, Darcy, Lynch, Kelly, surnames rooted deep in Tipperary and Munster. This was no longer a missionary community drawing its sisters from a founding house in Birr. By 1926, the Nina community was a self-sustaining institution, deeply embedded in the life of this town and this county. The head of that household, as the census records her, was Sister Mary Dominic O'Connor, aged 49. Under her roof that night was a community spanning more than 50 years of life experience. From Sister Mary Oliver Bugler, just 21 years old, to Sister Mary McGran, aged 73. That extraordinary age spread tells its own story. The older women in that community, those in their late 60s and 70s in 1926, would have entered religious life in the 1870s and 1880s. They were there when Mother Anastasia Beckett negotiated the acquisition of the jail in 1887. They had lived through the transformation personally, had perhaps carried furniture into the Governor's house, had perhaps taught their first classes in rooms that still smelled of the prison that they had been. Their presence on that census form alongside women young enough to be their granddaughters is a reminder that institutions are not abstractions. They are made up of individual human lives, layered one upon another across the decades. One name on that convent return deserves particular attention. Sister Mary Paul Leahy, aged 33, is listed among the community in April 1926. You might ask, why single her out from among 35 women? Because the records of the Sisters of Mercy tell us that in 1958, 32 years after that census night, Mother Paul Leahy led a group of 7 volunteers from Nina to Mississippi in the American South to staff a grade school there, and that 3 years later she and 5 companions established a new school and convent on a greenfield site in Gulfport, Mississippi. Now, if that is the same woman, and the name and timeline make it very likely that it is, then the 33-year-old sister recorded so quietly on a census form in Nina in 1926 would go on to carry the work of the Sisters of Mercy across an ocean to one of the most radically divided and turbulent corners of America during the civil rights era. Now, the census, of course, cannot tell us any of that. It simply records her name, her age, and the fact that she was there, in the old jail, just off Banba Square, on a spring night in 1926. But the convent was only half of the Sisters of Mercy story in Nenagh on that census night. A short distance away in Tyrone, that ancient place of faith and care where Augustinian friars had tended to the sick and the poor since the early 13th century, 5 more sisters were recorded on the census form for the Order's hospital. And what that hospital return reveals is, in some ways, even more fascinating than the convent record. The head of that household was Sister Mary Elizabeth Maxwell, aged just 32. Her birthplace is recorded as Westmeath, Kilbeggan to be precise, making her not a Tipperary woman at all, but a Midlander, far from home, carrying an enormous weight of responsibility for someone so young. The census form tells us something remarkable about the nature of that responsibility. In the occupation column beside her name, the enumerator has written, admin in charge of hospital. And in the employer column, North Tipperary Board of Health. Let's think of that again for a moment. This 32-year-old Sister of Mercy, answerable to her religious superiors and ultimately to Rome, was simultaneously a salaried public servant of the Irish Free State, running a public hospital on behalf of a state body in a country that had come into existence only 4 years earlier. That single line on a census form captures, with quiet precision, the extraordinary relationship between the Catholic Church and the new Irish state in those early decades. A partnership so intimate, so taken for granted, that nobody saw anything unusual in recording it so matter-of-factly on a government document. The other sisters in the hospital that night came from across the country. From Tipperary, from Wicklow, from Offaly. Sister Mary A. Kirwan, aged 58 and recorded as head nurse, was a Nenagh woman herself, quite possibly a girl who had been educated by the very sisters that she now worked alongside, who had grown up in the shadow of the old jail school and then given her life to the same order that taught her. Sister Mary Hayden had travelled from Baltinglass in County Wicklow. Sister Mary Slattery came from the Burr area of Offaly, another thread connecting the Nenagh community back to that original foundation, the last house Catherine Macaulay established before her death. These were women drawn from across the country by vocation and by the needs of a community sleeping that April night in a place that had known centuries of care before they ever arrived. But the sisters were not alone in that hospital. The census form also records 5 lay staff members, and they deserve to be named too. Michael Kelly, a 32-year-old wardsman from Nenagh, was the only man in the building that night, not a patient. Sarah Coonan, aged 28, and Kate Hayes, also aged 28, the latter from Thurles, were employed as domestic servants. The inside backbone of any institution of that era, their labour essential and their names rarely recorded in the histories that we write afterwards. Nora O'Leary, aged 66 from Kenmare in County Kerry, is listed not as a sister but as a lay nurse, a general hospital nurse employed by the North Tipperary Board of Health. 66 years old, far from her Kerry home, working the night shift in a Tipperary hospital run by nuns. And then, at the end of the hospital return, we find the patients. 43 of them, recorded on the census form not by their names but by their initials only. A quiet act of privacy in an otherwise relentlessly detailed document. 43 men and women of North Tipperary, sick and vulnerable on a spring night, their identities protected by 2 letters on a government form. We do not know who they were. We do not know what brought them there, illness, injury, the slow accumulation of a hard life's wear and tear on a body not built to last. But we know they were there, near that ancient ground at Tyrone, being cared for by sisters and lay staff alike, in a place where people had been coming for help for the better part of 800 years. Names change, institutions change. The faith that drives care finds different expressions across centuries. But the impulse to tend to those who cannot tend to themselves runs like a thread from the Augustinian friars of the 13th century to the Sisters of Mercy of the 20th century, unbroken across all the upheaval and transformation in between. So there they are, 40 women, sisters, nurses, administrators, captured on 2 census forms on a single April night in 1926, in 2 locations in the town of Nenagh, 35 in the old jail, 5 in the ancient grounds of Tyrone. Between them, they ran a school, a convent, and a public hospital. They came from Tipperary and Westmeath, from Wicklow and Offaly and Kerry. They ranged in age from 21 to 73. Some of them had been in Nenagh for decades. Some were newly arrived. Some, like the young sister Mary Paul Leahy, had stories ahead of them that would take them far beyond the borders of North Tipperary, to places and challenges that the 1926 census enumerator could not possibly have imagined. The women on those 2 census forms in Nenagh in 1926 did not seek fame. They did not leave memoirs. Most of them left nothing behind but a name on a government document and a life's work embedded in the fabric of this community, in the schools their pupils attended, in the patients they nursed back to health, in the generations of North Tipperary families whose lives were shaped, in ways large and small, by their presence in this town. Catherine Macaulay, who started all of this with an inheritance and a house on Bagot Street in Dublin in 1827, once wrote that the simplest definition of mercy was to bear the trials of others as if they were your own. On census night, the 13th of April 1926, 40 women in Nenagh were doing exactly that. It seems only right, almost a century later, that their names should be forever remembered in Tipperary's hidden history.
Oh, incredible piece there from Conor Reidy, Tipperary's hidden history. I'm sure you found that as interesting as I did. A lot of people on to us looking for Muriel's number. Muriel, who was talking to us there, along with Charlotte, in our Wellbeing slot. It's 062, it's, 88002. So that's 062 88002.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007.
Now, a listener on to say, parsley takes away the smell of garlic, Fran, from your breath. Now, I've tried that over the years, but it doesn't seem to work for me. Maybe it works for other people. I'm not too sure. But how do you feel about that, Leanne?
I love garlic.
Do you love garlic?
I love it. I even bought the garlic salt recently. Instead of normal salt, I put garlic salt on my food.
And does it bother you that you might sort of whiff of garlic?
A good mouthwash. A good mouthwash.
Works.
Works. Or milk.
Milk?
Yeah, a glass of milk and then a good mouthwash.
Go on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, conversations that are happening.
Yes, we have a few conversations picking up on our social media. So you can text in 083 311 3311 or get involved in those conversations online. So one of the big ones is people are sharing their decision to leave a particular religion and move to another one.
Oh.
So although they were brought up in one religion, they decided when they became adults, they didn't feel like it was right for them anymore. So they made the decision to go to a new church.
Interesting, because one of our contributors this morning saying that they thought it was a woman who felt she wasn't respected within the Catholic tradition because obviously there can't be priests and deacons and was thinking of moving to Church of Ireland.
So it seems to be something a lot of people do. A lot of people as well move into atheism, but still respecting the views of others. A lot of people as well believe in something, but don't really care enough to put a label on it.
Okay.
While they're living, they just keep going with their own lives.
Okay.
So we'd love to know if anyone did change religion or step back from a church or went on a different kind of journey than what they were brought up in.
Right. And particularly if they feel fulfilled now by making that decision.
Yeah, and what it was like. And obviously the idea with your family is having to tell them
that you
are changing
particularly
religion.
if they were conservative Catholics or something like that, and you had to say.
Especially in Ireland, when that was always the majority. So, and then another conversation is we're looking for advice. So we're going to chat to people coming up to the state examinations. Did they do the Leaving Cert? Did they go to college? What they're working as now? Or did they go in a different way? Does it all really come down to that piece of paper at the end of your secondary school?
Okay, interesting.
And then the last one, it's based on what Kat spoke to us about this morning. So memories of people who've passed away. So she said, talk about them. Talk about them, remember them, feel that connection with them. And it was another thing Angela said the other day, that they love to be asked about someone who passed away because it gives them a chance to talk about it.
Whereas most of us avoid that with people who are bereaved.
Or people feel like if someone else lost someone, you don't know whether to ask or not. You don't want to upset them.
Wasn't Kat's story unbelievable? I mean, her dad was in the burning building. Her mum went in to try and save him and perished herself then.
And that's just pure love.
Oh my God.
And in that situation, no one ever knows how they're going to react. But imagine to care about someone that much.
That much, you go into a burning building.
Literally, it's just it's so sad, but such a beautiful memory of the love she had for her mother as well, even speaking about her and her father.
Yeah.
So we've put up a post on Facebook and we want people to feel free. Give us your memories of your loved one. What was their favourite song? What was their favourite food? What did you like to do together? Yeah. What impact did they leave on your life? And we want you to have a space to share with us and talk as much as you want about your loved one, because we love to hear them.
Okay, lovely indeed. And so go on our social media.
Go on our social media or text us or give us a call. We want you to feel like you have a space to share these.
All right, so 1800 938 007 is the free phone number, and the text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Leanne, thanks very much indeed for that. That's it for me. Leanne produces, Stephen is on the way with the Time Tunnel, and we will talk to you tomorrow. We'll be in Nina tomorrow, won't we? Yeah. All right, looking forward to that. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.